Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some disturbing true Reddit threads, and oh boy, are today's Reddit threads absolutely terrifying and just downright disturbing. I mean, every single thread we're getting into today is eerie, weird, strange, disturbing, scary. I mean, they are just wild. So you want to stick around, and I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who clicked on the video. It means the world. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. The channel's goal is 1 million subscribers, so please subscribe. And yeah, like I said, today's Reddit threads are just beyond wild and scary and disturbing. And get comfy, sit back and relax. And without further ado, let's get into some disturbing true Reddit threads. Objects in my house kept disappearing, so I installed a camera. I think I caught someone in my house. Not sure if I'm using the right flare, but anyways, this is a throwaway I made to be safe. Recently, I've been having a weird experience in my apartment. Random objects keep disappearing, and then I find them behind the cupboard in my bedroom. For example, my anti-mosquito device went missing, and I had to buy a new one. The next day, I found it stuck behind the cupboard. Then my neck pillow that I always use when traveling disappeared. Again, I found it after a couple of days in the same place, though I still haven't managed to get it out because it's cramped in there. This had been happening for about 2 weeks until it abruptly stopped 4 days ago. I decided to take action and install cameras in my living room and bedroom. Well, not really cameras, but specifically the Alfred app on an old iPhone I have. Basically, you install the camera on 2 phones, your main one and an old one, and set up one as the viewer and the other one as a camera. I did this, and while sleeping, I caught something that sent shivers down my spine. I was woken up by the sound of an object falling to the ground, like a really loud thud. I got up to investigate, but found nothing. After making a trip through the apartment, I went back to sleep. The next morning, I entered the app to find that it recorded 3 events in the living room, photos by motion activation, presumably around the time I was sleeping, and somewhere at 8 p.m. to, I was very tired, FTR. It was pretty dark in the room, so the low light was turned on. This, and also this, is what I caught. And then he posts a picture of what he caught, and to be honest, I don't really see anything. I mean, it looks like flowers and a couch, unless I'm an idiot, which I kind of am, but I really don't see anything. This looks like a flower vase, and then a couch, and, you know, a wall in the background, and then a painting on the other wall. Then he says, also this, so let's take a picture or a look at the other picture, and in this one, I also don't see anything. So I wonder what he caught, so I guess he'll reveal it. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe you guys were saying, hey, look, it's right there. But anyways, it took me a while, but my theory is that the first one has something underneath the piano, while the second one has this shadow on the bottom. I am beyond terrified now. And I literally just spent 5 minutes like staring at these photos, and I can't see what he's talking about. I don't see where the piano is or something underneath the piano, and I also don't see a shadow on the bottom. Like, you guys might be screaming at your like screen right now, being like, how do you not see it? But I don't see anything. It looks like a, obviously very creepy. It's like very dark and green and night vision-y, but I don't really see anything, to be honest. Well, let's keep reading. So he continues to say, there were no signs of breaking in. The door was locked from the inside. The only thing that was open was a window, but it's pretty high from the ground, so it would be almost impossible for someone to climb. Told my dad to come stay with me tonight. Can anyone share some thoughts as to what this might be? And then the OP gives us an update saying, update 1. Woke up an hour ago. Asked my dad to check the place again. Turns out he already did so a few hours before I woke up. I checked the camera footage but didn't find anything. I even left a lamp on to have better lighting in the rooms, but nothing was caught. Window was open intentionally because my dad set the painful rat traps in case someone did in fact enter my apartment through the window. We'll keep this updated if anything interesting happens. And then he continues saying, some additional info because I can't keep replying to all the comments. I don't have any pets. I don't take any pills at all. I don't sleepwalk. High CO levels could be a possibility, but I don't suffer from all of the symptoms. I don't get tired. What I wrote on my post was that I was tired that day because of my work, plus my period, which is a literal pain, and I don't get headaches when I'm in the house. There aren't any wild animals around my house, just some birds. If it was a bag that got in, I would have noticed it immediately. Only the window was open, but it had the grid down, the one you install to keep insects and bugs out, so even if a bat forced its way inside my house, it would have to rip the grid off, which isn't the case since it was untouched when I woke up. Again, sorry for the bad quality. This is just an amateur security camera app that I installed on an older phone because I didn't want to spend money immediately on actual cameras. I live in a relatively quiet place, just a small town, so criminality is low and I've never needed to use security cameras until now. Probably the most obvious one, this isn't fiction. Hopefully this solves any questions you might have. Sorry for the formatting, I'm on mobile. And now let's get into some comments. Someone says, I can't see absolutely anything from the pictures. Do you have the video footage? And all right, at least I'm not alone on this and I'm not the only one who can't see anything. But then the OP replies to this saying, I should, but the events recorded only showed 3 pictures. The 2 above and another one that had something blocking the camera. And then the OP shares a 3rd image, which I'm really not sure why he didn't include that in the main text. And it looks like in this picture, it's someone's hand in front of the camera, which is very creepy. I mean, to me, it looks like someone's wrist coming from the right side and then a hand and 5 fingers. Very creepy. But yeah, it still just like doesn't look like anything. That's the most damning to me. But before, I didn't really see anything. This looks like a hand to me. And then some people keep replying to this saying, just so we know that we are seeing 2 questions. Number 1, are these the whole pictures or are you cropping or editing them? Number 2, the piece you scribbled out in the picture, is that the poster behind the couch? I just asked so we know where the camera is looking and which way is up. And then the OP replies saying, no, these aren't edited. I only cropped the parts around the image, the icons in the app and the carrier on the top of the phone. Number 2, the scribbling is on the poster above the couch. I just scribbled it because there's a name written on it. And all right, so that's pretty weird that there is a 3rd image he wasn't sharing. It looks kind of like a hand. Could it be a bug? For sure. I mean, maybe it could be a bug flying in front of the camera and it just looks weird. I mean, it looks more like a hand to me. But someone kind of gives a deep dive into all 3 of the photos. So let's get into that. Someone says, I rotated your images so they would be easier to understand. Image 1, image 2, and image 3. We've seen these all, but I'll put them on screen now. And I really don't think there's anything there in these images. Low light camera modes have lots of static and noise because of the poor sensor data they're trying to use. Then combined with image compression, it will create blotches and lines where there is nothing. This static and camera noise can definitely lead to the motion sensor going off by itself. Also, the dark spot in the bottom of image 2 is the shadow of the couch. You can see that compared to image 1, the lighting is different. Look at the shadow from the pillow. And then he says, edit 2, the camera movement theory is questionable. OP cropped each photo out of an app slightly differently to hide personal details in the phone interface, which may explain some shift between photos. Edit 3, to make sense of photo 3, I have overlaid it onto photo 1, where it seems to go. And then he shares the overlay, and which makes a lot of sense now. You can see the flower pot and where the hand sort of thing would be coming out above the couch. But again, I'm not convinced that this is anything. And then he shares a second photo saying, and with half transparency to show how they align. And this just kind of shows how they align together. So the OP cropped it from the original one, and that's how it looks. And then edit 4. Just so we are all on the same page, I made a quick mock-up of what people are talking about with the arms thing in image 1. I think it's pretty obvious it's not arms, but I wanted people to know what we were talking about. And then he shows an arms mock-up. And to be honest, I just don't see that. You can see how he adds like a little head and then a hand, and someone's like kind of propping up their head and then they're kind of like laying down. I really do think that's a reach. I really don't think that's anything. And then someone replies saying, the pictures make so much more sense rotated. I couldn't understand what I was looking at before. Someone else says, thank goodness for you rotating them. I had no idea what I was looking at. But yeah, I see the creepy looking arms holding what looks like a head. But then after that, it's just blurry, bad quality, and someone moving the camera around, even if they were supposedly asleep. And then someone asks a great question saying, Do you have a carbon monoxide detector? And I see this in the comments very often. People say, well, why does that matter? Well, if you have carbon monoxide leaking into your house, it can make you hallucinate. It can make you feel very tired. It can just make you not like yourself, not remember things. And for everyone watching, if you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, please get one, because you can very easily die from a carbon monoxide leak. And so a detector could literally save your life. And it also can make you hallucinate and do other crazy stuff. So that's why this question has validity. And then the OP's response is rather concerning, saying, no. But is there a chance there could be a high CO levels in my house? How would they be related to this incident? And then someone replies saying, there is a famous incident from r/legal advice where OP thought their landlord was sneaking into the apartment and leaving creepy notes. It was elevated CO levels that caused OP to do it themselves, and they had no memory of it. You should really look into this, even if you do not think it is happening. High CO levels can literally kill you in your sleep. And then someone asked, saying, what's up with the cupboard and how you can't get the neck pillow out? Could there be a critter living in the house and taking things through that cupboard? And then the OP says, I don't know. It's just that it's too far away and the space is too thin for me to get it out. And then the OP shows a picture. This is kind of the only reason I added this, because I think it's very interesting that that's where the neck pillow thing is. I mean, like, let's just say like the latter is true in saying there is somebody in the OP's house. Why would they do that? Like, that just doesn't make, like, why would someone breaking into someone's house while they're there just hide stuff behind a cupboard? To me, it seems like possibly carbon monoxide poisoning and doing something completely out of your mind and doing something illogical and just bringing that to behind your cupboard. I don't know. It's just very, very weird. And there's a ton of theories, but to me, the carbon monoxide theory does seem the most plausible. And then the last thing we ever hear from the OP is the OP replying to a comment saying, sure thing, I'll post an ordinary photo tomorrow because I'm working the night shift tonight. And that is the last we have ever heard from the OP. And this was 7 years ago. So I don't think we should expect an update anytime soon, but if the OP is somehow watching this, please email me. I'd love to hear the resolution of this case. But to me, like I said, allegedly, the carbon monoxide seems the most plausible. The OP doesn't have a carbon monoxide detector. It could be a small leak, and the OP is just hallucinating or doing something out of their mind at nighttime, or sleepwalking, or doing this or that or the other thing. But to me, it doesn't seem like someone would be in the house and then just hiding a airplane neck pillow behind a cupboard. And then also, I just don't know. It just doesn't seem plausible to me that some dude is in there doing that. But at the same time, I don't know. Possibly, but then at the same time, the photos the camera captured don't show anything. And so to me, this is probably carbon monoxide, but what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with me, or do you think there's possibly some other theory I'm not considering? A disturbing series of events. To start off, a couple of months ago, my buddies and I got a house together in hopes of living together since we've known each other for years now. A few weeks into living at the house, one of the guys called us while we were at work one night to tell us there was a organ at our doorstep. We all thought he was just messing with us until he FaceTimed us, and there, on our doorstep, was some type of organ. We aren't doctors, but it looked like a liver or something. We were all a little freaked out and just assumed that some kids were trying to mess with us. Ever since then, we hadn't had anything happen until last night. We were all home in the basement watching the Mike Tyson fight, drinking a few beers, when we decided to head outside to the backyard and start a fire. And we found another organ sitting on the floor outside the back door. It looked like it was just put there, but we didn't know for sure because we don't have any cameras or anything. We are literally 4 grown-ass guys, and we are kind of freaking out about these organs showing up at our house without anything telling us why or how, and I just want to know what to do. I have a picture of it, but I don't know how to post it because I'm new here, but if anyone can tell me how, I'll gladly share it. And then there's a quick buzz in the comment section. Some people start theorizing, saying, well, maybe it's a cat that brought an organ onto your doorstep, or maybe it's a person, or maybe it's one of your roommates pranking you, but no one has a solid explanation. And sadly, the OP doesn't really respond to any of them, so we don't know. Also, people do recommend getting cameras so he can see whatever's dropping this on his doorstep. He doesn't have cameras, so he doesn't know. But then the OP gives us a concerning update. Update number 1. And he says, so I finally found out how to post an image here. So here's a link to what we found. There weren't any traces of animals or bite marks on the thing. And then the OP posts a link, and we can see very clearly a liver on his doorstep. And sadly, I have to severely blur this for YouTube's sake. But yeah, very disturbing. I mean, it's a very clear, clean liver. I mean, it doesn't look like it was chewed by an animal, or, you know, it would have that look. It looks just eerily clean, like it was surgically removed. And there's no like drag marks, so it's not like an animal's dragging it. And there's this weird like white ooze underneath it. And I'm sorry I have to describe this so graphically, but I just want to give you guys a clear picture. And it's just right on his doorstep. I mean, I can't imagine how scary that'd be to open my door and a organ is right there. And then people start freaking out saying, well, maybe it's a human, maybe it's an animal, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, but no one really knows. Someone does say, if you think it is a human, call the cops. Even if you don't think it is a human, it might be worth calling the cops and having them take a look and getting their opinions. Outside of contacting law enforcement, I'd install cameras, talk to neighbors, and ensure my home is secure. Good luck, and let us know if you solve the problem or anything new happens. And then the commenter also responds to the new picture the OP provided, saying, now that I've seen the picture, it doesn't look like a pig liver to me, but what do I know? Measure the size of it and include that into the description. But it doesn't look like it's more than 4 inches large based on shoe and leaf. Hopefully we can get a vet and surgeon in here to provide more clarity. And sadly, there was no vet or surgeon that came in and provided any clarity, so we don't know. And then a lot of people start theorizing that the roommates are playing a prank on the OP. And very quickly, it seemed that the OP dismissed this, saying that they were all very surprised, and it doesn't seem like it was a prank because it keeps happening randomly, and they just don't know. But then the OP gives us a second update. In this update, he says, so a lot of you guys are saying that I should talk to the neighbors. So I asked everyone on the street if they have ever had anything like this happen. All of them said they never had anything like this happen to them. I also called the original owners of the house to confirm they didn't have a cat. They only had dogs. With that being said, that it had happened once to them, but they had never had it happen twice. I also went ahead and filed a report with the cops. They came over and looked around the house and swept the woods nearby, but ultimately said they couldn't find anything and that they suggest just getting cameras. We bought cameras and are waiting for them to come in. We really don't think an animal brought this liver to us. There are no marks, so it's getting creepy, thinking that someone is trying to fuck with us. The cameras are coming in, and I'll keep everyone updated as much as I can on who is doing this or what we find. And then there's really no more comments of note after this update, so let's get into update number 3. So earlier in the day, we tried to talk to the neighbors, but some weren't home, which was explained in the second update. I came home from work. My housemate let me know that one of the neighbors that wasn't home earlier was home now. We decided to take a walk over just to get his input on the matter. And he said some stuff that intrigued us, to say the least. He said he had something along the lines happen to him, that he had also found organs in his fenced-off dog pen. It disturbed him at the time and was glad to find out he wasn't the only one. He said that he didn't install cameras at first because he thought it was a tasteless prank some kids tried to pull on him due to it being around Halloween, which is a major time of year to expect mischief from kids in my area. However, it happened one more time about 3 weeks ago. He had a Ring doorbell, nothing captured, but installed cameras after and said nothing had happened since, but he's been waiting to catch it. Also, he did contact police, which they told him the same thing they told us. I don't know how deadass the claim is, but he seemed like he wasn't exaggerating. He was kind enough to send us a photo, which he took when he brought the dog out. It's hard to say who is doing this or why it's happening, but we have our neighbor's number now, so we'll keep in touch on anything that happens between us. And then the OP shares the picture of what the neighbor sent to him, and this one's even scarier. I mean, it's literally two intact organs, which to me looks like a heart and a liver on the side of his house or side of his dog shed. I mean, like, holy shit. Like, this is terrifying. And I mean, they look intact, which is even scarier. So it's not like some animal ripped it out of another animal and brought it to the house. Like, these look big. I don't know if they're human. I don't know if it's some other animal, but like downright so scary. And I have no clue what it is. And everyone in the comments is kind of at a loss as well. They're all saying, I don't know what it is. And sadly, we have never got another update from the OP. And this was 5 years ago, so I doubt we will ever get another update. But God, that is so scary. I mean, I wonder if it is some sort of weird prankster. I did notice after going to the OP's profile that he did post an r/occult. So maybe the OP thinks it's a cult of some sort in his area. I don't know where he lives in the US. I assume he's in the US, but the post in the r/occult was seeking some insight if this has any link to cults. Someone recommended I come ask if you guys would know anything along these lines. And then some people say, maybe, but not really. I mean, doubtful. But yeah, this is a very scary post to me. I thought it was just super disturbing because, I mean, imagine like organs just start showing up at your house. What do you guys think? Do you think it's an animal? Do you think it's some sort of weird pranksters? I mean, that doesn't seem that likely to me. I mean, that's some pretty demented pranksters. Or do you think it's a serial killer leaving his trophies at someone else's house? I mean, who knows? Very scary. And there's a lot of different avenues this could go down, but I'm kind of at a loss. So what do you guys think? Knocking at my door at night. Throwaway account. The past few weeks, I'm woken up to knocking at my front door. My bedroom is very close to it. All that's between my bed and the entryway to the house is one wall. My bedroom window can see onto the front porch, but at such an angle that I can't see the door itself, only the space directly in front of it. My parents, whose bedroom is in the basement, don't hear the knocking. Neither does my little brother, but he's at the other end of the house. My sister is almost as close to the front door as I am, and while she doesn't hear the knocking, she's been complaining about not sleeping well lately. More details about the knocking. It tends to happen very late at night, or early, technically. During the week, I'm in bed at 10 or 10:30 or so. I can be up for work at 6. Everyone else is in bed at the same time or shortly after. On the weekends, I'm up a few hours later, but everyone else's sleep schedules stay the same. When I go to bed early, the knocking seems to happen at around 12 or 1. But when I'm up late, it's not till closer to 3. This makes me think that whoever is knocking is somehow trying to get my attention. Maybe they even know that I'm near enough to the door to hear them better than the rest of the family. Maybe they're trying to wake me up or interfere with my sleep, so they wait till I'm asleep? Just an idea. The knocking is fairly quiet. Another reason it might be targeted at me, so I hear it, but not anyone else. It's loud enough to wake me up, but without filling the whole house. It doesn't seem to follow any sort of pattern, just a typical 3 or 4 knocks like you'd use to normally knock on a door. I usually wake up mid-knock, making me think that whoever is doing it has probably already been knocking for a few minutes before I even wake up. But that's just a guess, and I really have no way of knowing. Once I'm awake, it continues every couple of minutes for 10 or 15 minutes, before stopping suddenly, sometimes even mid-knock. I've tried looking out my windows to see who's out there, but whoever it is stays out of view from my window. In no way am I going to the door to see who's there. I can see, however, that the screen door is being held open so they can knock on the wood door. It could just be some prankster, but it's been happening for close to 3 weeks now. That seems like a lot of time and effort, especially so late at night, just to get no reaction. Before you ask, I'm going to buy a night vision camera if it doesn't stop soon. It's a lot of money, but at this point, it's worth it if it helps. And yes, I have told the police, but they say there isn't a lot they can do. They've sent patrol cars by a few times, but they don't see anything. Those nights, the knocking comes late, but it still comes. They say they'll continue to help however they can, but they can't dedicate a unit to watching my house since they don't have any sort of evidence of what's happening besides my testimony. If anyone has any ideas, please share them. I'm getting desperate. Whoever this is seems determined to torment me, and I'm helpless to stop them. I will take any and all advice. Thank you. And now let's get into some comments. Someone says, "That's spooky as hell. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. For the record, I have 2 Nest cameras. They're a little pricey, but very reliable and the quality is good. Good luck." And then the OP replies saying, "That's probably what I'll be getting, since there's no sign of anything changing. I really don't want to spend the money, but it's a lot better than living with this, or even worse. Whatever they might do next." Someone else says, "If you can see the screen door being held open, why don't you just wait until they're done to see who closes it?" And then the OP replies saying, "That's a really obvious idea. Can't believe I didn't think of it. I'm trying this tonight. Will post pictures if I can get any." And then another commenter has a rather good theory, saying, "How old is your sister? I suspect she may have a nighttime visitor, especially seeing the knocking sometimes stops mid-knock. And she has been tired lately." And that's a great connection. I didn't think about that, but the OP did say his sister has been tired lately, and so maybe she hasn't been sleeping at night and inviting some boy over or whatever to do whatever at night. That's actually a good theory. And then they finish off the comments saying, "Otherwise, go and get your parents when the knocking starts, or sit up and watch until the person leaves, so you can see who it is. This really should be an easy one to solve." And I do agree with that commenter. And then the OP replies saying, "She's about the right age," whatever that means, "but she's extremely conservative and not at all the type. And if that were the case, the visitor would probably be knocking on her window instead of the door because it's an easy reach. But she surprised me before, so I could be wrong, and that could be what's going on. I'll have to watch for any signs of that. Someone else suggested just watching to see when they leave, so that's what I'm going to do tonight. Hopefully, I'll be able to get some pictures." And before we move on to the OP's update, I just want to cover one more comment because I think this is another good theory. The commenter says, "Yikes, this is creepy as hell. Definitely get someone to stay up with you, record the noise, and try and get pictures or videos to then take to the police if it turns out that it actually is somebody doing this to you. Can you think of anyone who would want to harass you? How long has this been happening for? It's strange for it to be a random person doing this for ages to get no reaction whatsoever. Seems like it'd be more personal if it's persistent. Would your parents help you pay for a camera ASAP? You could pay them back. It's better to be safe than sorry." And then the OP replies saying, "Now that I think of it, I broke up with my ex-girlfriend just a few days before it started. She was slightly pathologically insane, but it was an online relationship. She lives over 2,000 miles from where I live, and she doesn't have the means to travel to where I am or to stay long term. And I'm pretty sure she doesn't have my address or even my city, but still, there could be a possible connection there. Hard to say. I'll talk to my parents about buying a camera now. I don't know if they can afford it right now either, but it's worth asking." And so that's another good theory, even though it's not likely considering she lives 2,000 miles away. But we have the ex-girlfriend theory of some crazy ex-girlfriend knocking on the OP's house, or the sister up late at night with another person. 2 decent theories, or the third, it's some crazy guy that's consistently knocking on the OP's house only to get the OP's attention. Very interesting, but let's move on to the OP's update, titled Knocking Update. And the post reads as follows. So first, the boring stuff. I replaced the bulb on my front porch as some people suggested. It's working fine now, so hopefully that will deter the person. I ordered a Wise camera, but it won't be here until the weekend. Me and my dad are also going to install a peephole in the door when we set up the camera. So between those 3 things, the front door will be much more secure soon. Now, the interesting stuff. Last night, me and my dad both stayed up. He was in the living room, which the front door opens into. He had a clear view of the door, and he kept the blinds drawn and lights off so that it would look like he wasn't there. I was in my room catching up on some college work I've fallen behind on since this whole thing started. If I'm gonna stay up late, I might as well be productive. All my lights were off and my blinds were closed. so it should have looked the same as normal from the outside. The night was quiet, no knocking, so at 12:30, I decided to go to sleep. I went to tell my dad, and he said he'd stay up another hour just to be sure, then he'd go to sleep as well. At about 1:15, he got up to go to the bathroom. When he came back, he sat back down on a couch with a clear view of the door. As his eyes adjusted to the dark, he thought he could see something in front of the small window near the top of the door. When he looked closer, he realized it was a fucking person's face. He immediately grabbed his phone and called the police, staying away from the door. After a few minutes of talking, the operator asked him to look at the window again from a distance and try to describe the person, but they were gone by then. The police sent 2 squad cars over, one to talk to my dad, and the other one patrolled our street and the surrounding streets for anything suspicious. They didn't find anything, but they took my dad's story and talked to me as well. My dad woke me up as soon as he got off the phone with the police. They're going to send patrols down our street at regular intervals throughout the night for tonight, and probably the rest of the week too. My dad didn't see enough detail for a suspect sketch, so all we have to go on is the person is tall enough to look through the window in the door. It's about 6 feet above the concrete step in our front door, so the person is probably at least 6'5" to get a clear look through it. Part of me hopes they come back and we get a better look. Part of me really hopes they don't. On the bright side, this rules out the possibility of it being animals, house sounds, or just my mind. It's definitely real, and the police are involved now, so I guess it's good to have a better idea of what's happening, but still, it's scaring the shit out of me. I'm generally pretty brave. I've wrangled loose venomous snakes and didn't break a sweat, but that's a threat I understand and can predict. I know what a scared animal will do. I've got no idea what this prowler will do. I know how to catch and calm a snake. I don't have the slightest idea of what this guy wants or what he'll do to get it. That's what scares me, not knowing what's next. I guess all I can do is go to sleep tonight and see what happens. Wish me luck. And now this is terrifying. I mean, now it's obviously not him imagining it. It's most likely not his ex-girlfriend, considering this guy's 6'5", and it's also not likely that this is the OP's sister who's just hanging out with some guy late at night. So let's get into some comments and see some other people's updated theories. Someone says, the fact that they came back multiple nights and they're not knocking loud enough to get the attention of the whole house seems to me like they're casing your home, trying to figure out when you guys are asleep and if you'd wake up to certain noises. More than likely just a simple crook looking for an easy break-in. Make sure you have all your valuables locked up just in case, and if your parents don't own, that they at least have renter's insurance. If the person saw your dad, hopefully they know that you guys know they're coming around and will stop. And then someone replies saying, normally I'd agree, but there's something very off about this. If it was just them trying to case the house, they would have broken in by now, but rather they clearly are watching the house mid-evening on and waiting until everyone is asleep to go knock on the door. And then the other guy replies saying, I've had a dude try casing my house over the span of months. Drug addict behavior rarely makes sense. Decent theory, but yeah, I agree. Why wouldn't the guy just break in at this point? Even if it is a drug addict with a completely deranged mind that's not in the sound mind, I feel like they would have broken in by now instead of just knocking on the door late at night over and over and over and over again. But another commenter says, that's honestly terrifying. Do you know if the person realized your dad saw him? I hope everything works out for you guys and you get to the bottom of this. Please keep us updated if you can. Good luck. And then the OP replies saying, that's what we assume happened. Obviously, no way to be certain. I'll continue to update every time anything big happens, but not too much so I don't spam. And then the OP gives us an update titled Another Quick Update, and the post reads as follows. Just a short update to let everyone know I'm alright and to respond to comments on the last update. First, here's what happened last night. I decided to sleep on the couch with a weapon handy, baseball bat with a sock as was commonly suggested. because I felt that my dad deserved a break after last night. It was hard to sleep, but the window was covered, so I felt safe enough to eventually doze off. At one point, I woke up and thought I heard footsteps and or voices outside the door, but I'm pretty sure it was just my anxiety and half-asleep state playing tricks on me. No knocking or disturbances all night, which is a huge relief. As for the camera, it's been delayed due to harsh winter weather in my area, so I decided to just cancel the order and found one at a store nearby. I couldn't figure out how to set it up, but a friend of mine who's worked on the security systems before is going to come take a look later tonight. It should be working fine before I go to bed. A lot of people suggested asking friends or neighbors to help us catch this guy. That's a great idea. I talked to my neighbors. Most of them don't have surveillance cameras, but those who do will see if they can find anything. One of my friends, the tech guy who's helping me with the camera, is going to set up camp for the night in his car across the street and down a ways so it's not obvious he's watching our house. His girlfriend will be there too, so hopefully 2 sets of eyes catches something. Last, I want to quickly address some specific comments. I'm not telling anyone to attack them. I'm not trying to get people riled up. I just think these people make good points and I want to talk about it. Here's the first, and the comment reads as follows, saying, "You'd think with everyone having a camera on their phone, somebody would have recorded something by now. How convenient they haven't, and that the one camera is not here till the weekend will never be mentioned again. Nah, I'm sure this isn't fiction at all, guys." And then the OP replies saying, "It's true. It does look weird that I don't have any photos, but remember that this happens late at night, past midnight, and this person has shown they're smart enough to avoid detection. I'll have a camera set up tonight, so if they come back again, I'll get some evidence. And of course, you guys will be the first to see, after the police." The next comment is actually a short chain. It's not that long, but it's too long to paste in, so I'll just summarize. If anyone wants to read the original chain, it's on the last post, but please don't treat this person like shit. Basically, they say that everyone is taking this too seriously for how little evidence I've provided, and that's a completely valid point. I can't prove any of this right now, so why should you believe me? I probably wouldn't, honestly. Right now, the only evidence I have is what I've heard and seen and what my dad saw, neither of which I can conclusively prove. I'm hoping to get some real evidence tonight. Until then, I suppose you're completely in the right to be skeptical. That's all. Since there was no knocking last night, I'm really hoping there won't be any tonight either. Maybe being spotted scared the guy away. Who knows? I'll update tomorrow or the next day, depending on what happens. Thank you all so much for your support. I've read some of the comments to my family, and we are also grateful for your help. It really means a lot to us. And then everyone in the comments is kind of saying, okay, cool. Any updates that night? And sadly, the OP gives us 0 solid updates from then on. 0, even though he said he would. So I don't know what happened to the OP. So did the guy or the knocking guy just stop showing up to the house? Possibly. And then another theory, I think, which has actually happened in a past few Reddit threads, where the police are like, hey, stop posting this online because this is an ongoing investigation. So that's another theory, because I have seen that a few times, and a lot of the times for an ongoing investigation, they don't want the person just posting all the evidence online and that sort of stuff. So that's a solid theory, but we just have not gotten any sort of update ever since then, which I'm sad about, because what the hell was happening? I mean, it's terrifying that it was happening for 3 weeks. Whoever this tall guy was, knocking on the OP's door, trying to wake up the OP and nobody else. And who was this person? Was it just a deranged maniac? Possibly. Was it someone else wanting something more sinister, or wanting someone to open the door? Who knows? I mean, I really don't know. But this was a very scary and chilling Reddit thread. I mean, this was very, very weird, and I'm very, very sad that we never got an update. But what do you guys think? My negligence cost my partner her life, and I'm about to lose everything. I, 35 male, have been married to Lisa, 28 female, for 3 years, together for 7 years. A year ago, I fell deeply in love with Amy, who's 24, and had been planning to end my marriage for her. I know it's terrible and not what my wife deserves, but we were the real thing. 2 weeks ago, she had an allergic reaction when we were getting food after work, but she used her EpiPen and seemed mostly okay afterwards. She usually gets checked at the hospital after a reaction, but I asked her if I could take her home and she could get her friend to drive her there because my wife was expecting me back. All I know is that she had a secondary reaction that evening and died. I didn't even find out about it until the following Monday through a work email. It has been eating me up ever since, and I will never forgive myself for not sacrificing an hour of my time to possibly save her. I sent some childish messages to Amy when I didn't hear from her over the weekend because I thought she was angry I didn't take her to the hospital. I am thankful she never saw them and ashamed that I assumed the worst. Our relationship was great and the highs far outweighed the lows, but I have always hated being ignored and I lose my cool when it happens. It is not a regular occurrence and I would have more than made it up to her. Yesterday at work, HR and legal were in the CEO's office all day, and my manager ended up canceling our project meeting because he was with them all afternoon. I was on edge, but an affair isn't exactly a corporate crisis, and I thought something would have already happened if anyone knew. I'm now 99% certain it was about me. A few hours ago, I received a message from Amy's phone which said, "This is Amy's brother, Tom. I want you to know it was me." I tried to call, but it went straight to voicemail, and none of my messages have been delivered. I tried to call my manager more times than I should have, and he sent a message saying, "Please don't contact me until Monday morning. I can't discuss anything with you right now." So it looks like my universe is going to collapse. I'm going to be fired, and my wife will definitely find out why. All I can do is hope that Amy's brother only showed them the messages from that weekend, and they were bad enough. I have no family except my wife and daughter, and nowhere to go. All my friends are either people I've met through my wife or my colleagues. On Monday, everything I've spent over a decade working towards disappears. I can't stop it. I can't talk to anyone about it. So, here I am. I know cheaters are the devil, so I'm not expecting sympathy, but this is making my chest hurt, and I need to get it out there. And now let's get into some relevant comments. Someone says, "You need to tell your wife before someone else does. You already betrayed her. Don't make it even worse." And the OP replies saying, "I won't know 100% until Monday morning exactly how much my work knows. And there is a sliding scale of how bad this will get depending on how much he has given them. If it's everything, my wife will be crushed. If it's only the messages from the weekend she died, it can be much gentler. I don't want to hurt my wife more than absolutely necessary." And then someone else says, "Wow, you are something else." And the OP replies saying, "One thing I will not apologize for is trying to minimize the damage to my wife. She doesn't deserve any of this. She's been wonderful and our daughter is my entire world. I know that my reputation is going to be ruined, but I don't need her or anyone else to know the bad details. My message history with Amy undermines the last year of our marriage in fundamental ways, and it would absolutely end her." Someone else says, "You deserve everything that happens from this point out. To be this heartless to a woman you made vows to and share a child with is so disgusting." And the OP replies saying, "All I can say is that I didn't get to decide who I fell in love with. I would never hurt my wife deliberately, and I will do anything I can to minimize that hurt now that is inevitable." And then another commenter says, "Your wife is going to be shattered no matter what you do. I get the sense you have no intention of being honest with her, and I'd caution you against that. She deserves your complete honesty now, despite the fact that you didn't give it to her at any other point. Also, I wouldn't bet on Tom hiding anything to protect your reputation." And the OP replies saying, "This is my problem. If he knew what to look for, he could end almost every relationship I have. I've lied to everybody to protect my relationship with Amy, and there's basically a daily timeline of the whole thing reflected in my messages. People I work with are friends with my wife, and I can't have her knowing everything because it would break her. And if she was vindictive, I could truly be left with no one." And another commenter says, "This has nothing to do with minimizing the damage to your wife, but to yourself. Don't disguise it as anything else." And I do agree. And then the OP says, "I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of it. I've been scrolling through my messages with Amy, and it just gets worse and worse. I missed family events to be with Amy, and I'm concerned that my wife may actually become violent if she finds out about one of them. Another commenter said, just for the heck of it, what was the family event? And then the OP replies saying, her sister suffered a stillbirth and I couldn't make it to the service because I had committed to attending an event with Amy months in advance. I know it's bad. And before we move on to more comments, I just have to say, Jesus Christ, this is a horrible situation all around. I mean, I feel so badly for the OP's wife and his daughter who have been lied to for who knows how long, months, years even maybe. And the OP missed a funeral to go hang out with this lover and to have an affair with. Like, God, that is just so heartbreaking on every level. But let's move on to more comments. Someone says they probably know everything or enough. They could be looking at your work correspondence, emails, instant messages. Plus, she likely had no reason to delete anything from her phone and hide previous messages and calls like you may have. And then the OP replies saying, that would be the worst case scenario. I felt very anxious throughout the affair because I'm not a naturally dishonest person, and I've taken that out on Amy via messages a few times. I also secured her a promotion, and our messages make it clear that it was solely because of our relationship. And just, Jesus, this just keeps getting worse and worse. I made some comments about the promotion on the weekend she died, and if anyone looks back, they're going to pull a thread that could make me look abusive without proper context. That is a major concern, especially with my daughter involved. I've also told some large and hurtful lies, which would be exposed because the messages make it clear where I actually was at certain times. This is what would hurt my wife the most. Just, oh my God. This is just getting worse and worse. Someone else says, did she report to you? Or did you just use your position to secure a promotion for her, purely based on your relationship and not her merit? And then the OP replies saying, her manager is my direct report. I joked a few times in intimate conversations how she still owed me for the promotion. And when she had initially asked about it, I sent her a message with a pretty comprehensive list of reasons I didn't think she was ready. She thought that was so I asked someone at my level to put a word in. Over the weekend, I basically said that she was underqualified for the role and wouldn't be able to survive doing it anywhere else. I'm horrified, but I thought she was being petty and playing games, so I responded in kind. And then the commenter also says, oh, so you may actually be catching charges as well. The OP then says, I don't think I'm in legal trouble, but morally I definitely am. Someone else in the department had applied for the role, and arguably they were more qualified for it, although neither of them were really. I ensured that they received a good pay rise afterwards and a key role in a very desirable project, and there's evidence of me advocating for that. They will likely be moving into Amy's role now, and we've always had a good relationship. But I understand that they're going to be extremely mad, and I will be apologizing as soon as possible. I just have to take whatever abuse they want to throw at me. I know I deserve it. Someone else says, someone that wants to rain hellfire on your world is in the position of text that can be argued to prove a situation of coercion in the workplace. I would not rest easy, OP. Your bosses are already working out how to protect themselves and the company y'all work for. Enjoy those figurative bus wheels. Bro still thinks he can somehow keep his job and be in a position to do anything. And I do agree with the commenter. Like, this looks horrible for the OP in every possible way. He looks like he's going to lose his job, lose his wife, lose his daughter, everything. I mean, it does not look like he's going to get out of this. I mean, rightfully so. And the OP replies saying, I will not be keeping my job if any of this comes out. I've spent company money on my relationship with Amy, and there's a year's worth of evidence. Jesus. I've spoken at length about my incriminating things, and I have told her that her job was at risk a few times when we argued. Oh my God, it just keeps getting worse. I've suggested I will blacklist her across our industry, which is what I'm particularly worried about. Once because I believed she had told someone we work with about us. The text chain shows us resolving the issue and me apologizing. I am under no illusions as to how serious this situation is. Someone else says, minimize the damage to your wife? The one you said you were going to leave? Are you still going to leave? I'm desperate to know. Somehow I doubt it. The OP then replies saying, People can have amicable divorces, and that's what I hoped to achieve. Amy is the only woman on earth I would have left my wife for. It's selfish and awful, but my wife is 99% perfect, and Amy is 100%. I understand how terrible it is, but I don't know what leaving my wife would have solved, and the knowledge of this relationship never came out. I couldn't have ripped my family apart for nothing. And I can't, this is crazy. I can't even comprehend everything this OP is saying. I feel so horrible for the wife. Imagine she reads these threads and reads what the OP is saying about his wife. This is just disturbing as all hell. Someone else says, curious, what was the 1% Amy had over your wife? Was it her ruthlessness in pursuing a married man with a young child? Was it her complete lack of moral compass? Was it the fact that your garbage soul recognized her veracity as equally trashy? And the OP replies saying, they're both incredible women, but they couldn't be more different. When my wife walks into a room, it's like a hurricane strike. Everybody sits up straight. She's tall and assertive and extremely intelligent. She's funny and quick, and she dominates in a male-dominated industry where they all love her. She's very straightforward, and she can be far too blunt. Amy was softer. She didn't have to be the smartest or the strongest or the most well-read person in the room. She saw her job as a job, and she wanted to raise a family somewhere cozy. We were going to grow tomatoes in the back garden and keep chickens for eggs and as pets. My wife would have designed an automated hydroponic system and signed us up for a subscription for a local egg coop. They're just different people who touch different parts of my heart and my mind. And my initial thoughts after reading that, this is all alleged, this is just me theorizing, but it seems like the OP likes being able to control Amy. Does that make sense? He's saying his current wife is a lot more assertive, she's straightforward, she can handle her own, so to say, but then Amy just kind of does what he says, which is very disturbing as well. Do you guys agree with me on that? But that's kind of all alleged, that's just me theorizing. That's not true, that's just me, what I'm thinking, but that seems to be the case there. He's like, well, Amy didn't have to be the smartest or the strongest, and I can kind of move her around, which is also something that is proven in the earlier text threads with him saying, oh, you have to do this to keep your job. So he's kind of just wanting to control Amy. That's pretty messed up. Someone else says, is that why you cheated on your wife? Skull emoji 3 times. You couldn't handle your wife's intelligence and confidence? Okay, well, I'm not the only one who thinks that. And then the OP says, they were some of my favorite things about her. I've always admired her strength and determination. I feel like I'm really 2 different people, and they both want 2 different things. Sometimes I need a partner who is soft and sweet and who needs me to take the lead. And other times I need someone to come in and take control and organize everything and be the loudest voice in the room. The decider was ultimately that I loved Amy more. I knew it in my core. Someone else says, Tom has real Elena Tyrell energy, true king shit. Realistically, I can't blame him. His sister is dead because Cheaty McCheaterface over here had other things to do. He can't have him arrested, but he can otherwise ruin his life. OP, the absolute worst thing here isn't losing your wife, family, job, or support system. It's living with your guilt. Best of luck. And then the OP replies saying, I don't expect this to change your opinion, but she kept reassuring me that everything she was feeling was normal for her attacks and that there was nothing to worry about. We had a long-standing agreement when it came to my home life. I had committed to leaving by the end of this year, but the cost of that was that I had to be extremely careful when it came to us spending time together so I could gently extract myself from my marriage. My work schedule is extremely regular, and if I'm not home when expected, it's a conversation. By the time she felt better after she used her EpiPen, I was cutting it close already. The hospital is a half-hour drive out of my way, so at the time it felt like at least an hour, and probably a few more if I had to check in or stay with her. Obviously, that all feels so stupid now that she's gone. I'd have shouted about us from the rooftops and told my wife then and there if it could get her back. The guilt is indeed the worst bit. Another commenter says, the fact is that if you genuinely cared about your wife, you would have been honest with her from the beginning. You keep talking about sparing your wife's feelings, and I'm genuinely confused why. because I'd imagine finding out that your husband is leaving you and destroying your family because he's in love with someone else is one of the most painful things that can happen. No matter how gentle you are about it, it doesn't change the facts of the matter. I'm getting the impression he was never gonna leave his wife. And then the OP replies saying, I didn't know the finer details, but I had made a commitment to leave by the end of this year, and I intended to keep to it. My intention was to pull away from my wife gradually and eventually mutually decide to separate. Obviously, that's not happening now, but I want to minimize the harm to her as much as possible. Someone else says, just admit your wife aged out of your preferred bracket, so you went shopping for a younger model. The OP then replies saying, my wife is more beautiful now than she was the day I met her. She is ferocious and vibrant, and she is going to find a man who's charismatic and social and who earns a ridiculous amount of money. That's kind of a weird thing to say. And she's going to make him deliriously happy and occasionally wonder what she ever saw in a sad little man like me. My daughter will probably prefer him. The age gap is a coincidence. Amy and I were simply soulmates. This is getting weirder and weirder as we keep going down the comments. I know this is a lot of comments, but these comments perfectly illustrate his thinking and how things are playing out. Another commenter says, what I don't understand is why you didn't call your wife and say a colleague needed running to the hospital and you'd be straight home after. This feels like it never needed to have got to this point. You were so paranoid and careful, you forgot how normal people respond to things like this. And the OP replied saying, you're right. There are a million things I could have said. We had a pretty strict agreement that my time with her would never infringe on my time with my family. And all I can say is that my head went straight to that instead of where it should be. I had no idea a secondary reaction could happen. If it did, this would have never happened. I would never knowingly risk her life. Someone else says, you've literally already said you missed a funeral for a baby to go to an event with your mistress. Don't play like you've never sacrificed your family time before. SMH. The OP then replies saying, ironically, that agreement was the reason I went with Amy. She had asked for one full day and night together each month, and my requirement was that it was booked well in advance. I canceled the first two, and this one was make or break as we were fighting over something else at the time. There was a lot of context, but I stand by my decision. Wow. Just wow. He doesn't even say he regrets it. I stand by my decision to miss a funeral for a baby. That is very telling of who this guy is. He continues saying, obviously my wife wouldn't understand that perspective and I didn't expect her to, which is why I don't want all of this to be dragged out in the open. Wow. And then someone else says, what were the messages? The OP then replies saying, there are too many to even think about. We've had a few very nasty arguments. I've threatened her job, accused her of sleeping with colleagues, spoken badly about people we work with, spoken badly about my wife and family, talked at length about how we can disguise our dates as company expenses, everything. More. I've basically admitted to sabotaging someone else's promotion and acknowledged she wasn't qualified for the role I secured for her. And I've held it against her a few times, although the messages also show us resolving much of this, and I believe there's growth over the year. Not that anyone will be looking for that. Basically, it's extremely bad. My wife is friends with the people who will be investigating this if my work actually has access. And then the final comment on this post is, if you don't get fired for the affair, you'll probably get fired for misappropriating company expenses, which you'll then have to explain why, and the end result will be the same, so here's hoping. And the OP replies saying, there is a strong culture of fudging expenses in the business, and I have plenty of evidence of that. I know exactly how much I've spent because it was all under the same account name, which I can also prove. So I believe that offering to pay the money back will be sufficient. Obviously, if I no longer have a job, that will be difficult, but all I can do is offer. I don't think that is going to be a legal issue, but yes, I will definitely be fired if they know what I think they know. Jeez, man. And then the OP gives us an update post. Update. My negligence cost my partner her life, and I'm about to lose everything. And the post reads as follows. I've been consistently harassed for an update since posting, so please take it. Gloat because you're such wonderful people in comparison. Then stop following me around Reddit. I'm suffering in the wake of my infidelity and unprofessional behavior as I knew I would. I understand that it is an appropriate outcome and I'm taking full accountability. I was suspended from work on Monday and I'll probably be fired sooner than I thought. I'd hoped to be able to save money as HR built their case, but it looks like Amy's brother basically performed the entire investigation for them. After an excruciating 3-hour run-through of everything they had, I spoke to the founder, and he recommended the solicitor I am now using. The issue is that the company has to come down hard to protect themselves, because even though Amy's family doesn't have much chance of a claim, any suggestion of a cover-up would cause damage regardless. The founder still thinks my offer to pay them back will keep it out of court, and some more information has come to light. So it's not certain I won't be prosecuted, but I'm quietly hopeful. I can't afford to keep the solicitor if this goes on further, especially with a divorce on the horizon. And things are not good with my wife. I'm still committed to making this as easy as possible for her, but I had to draw a line when it came to my daughter. When I got home from being unceremoniously escorted out of my office, she already had a bag packed for me. She wouldn't let me wait at the house until my daughter was back. She wouldn't let me check I had everything I needed. She wouldn't let me take the car, and she didn't care that I had nowhere to go. I spent 2 nights in a hotel, then went back when she refused to let me see my little girl. She tried to stop me, but we owned the house jointly, and it was my only option. My wife has family she could stay with, but she won't leave our daughter here, and she's absolutely not taking her. So we're at a stalemate right now. I'm keeping out of her way as best I can, which I can appreciate is the least I can do. The Amy situation is quite difficult to talk about, and a lot hasn't sunk in yet. It turns out that she didn't love me as much as I loved her, if at all. Her brother sent me images of her talking to her friends about me, and it's hard to believe they came from the person I loved, but they are real. Sorry to those who were heavily invested in me being a predatory abuser, but she and her friends had a good laugh about her manipulating me for money and a promotion. The role came with a big pay raise, and it looks like her plan was to treat it as free cash, then go to work with one of her friends when it fell through. She knew I'd come under scrutiny whenever she messed up and assumed I'd keep stepping in to save her. She was right. Obviously, I am completely humiliated. I was planning to give up everything to build a life with her, and she was treating me like a joke the whole time. Wow, what a change of events. My feelings are complicated, so please don't feel entitled to any expansion on this, but I no longer feel guilt over her death. Wow, that's crazy. That's just fucking crazy to say. But I no longer feel guilt over her death. Like, I don't even have words. This guy is just crazy. This is the craziest Reddit thread I've ever read. He doesn't feel guilty for his death, even though he was technically responsible for not bringing her to the hospital. It's like, dude, even though she didn't love you, you can still feel guilty for not saving her life. It's like, oh my God, this is crazy. Let's continue. Reddit acted like I kept her hostage while she begged for help. What actually happened was that I asked if she could ask her friend to take her to the hospital because I had to go home. She said that was fine because she needed to get some clothes back from her anyway, and I dropped her off as normal. Ultimately, she was an adult who had a better understanding of her medical needs than I did. I still don't know what happened between us saying goodbye and her death, but whatever it was, it had nothing to do with me. I'm sorry for her family's loss, but I bear no responsibility for her passing. After Amy's messages to her friends were passed around, a few people quietly reached out with words of support. I assumed everyone would write me off like Reddit did as an abuser. Now it's clear that Amy was using me. They see me as a fool who had then lost it all. It's beyond humiliating, but I have learned I'd rather be pitied than despised, and it improves my legal position with work. There's still mercies, but I'll take what I can get. I remain filled with regret, and I will have learned many lessons by the time I get through this. I may have been deceived, but I am a grown man who made my choices, and I take full responsibility for them. And now let's get into some comments. Someone says, I think it was clear to most of us that we were being used. You certainly are not the first guy who gave up a wonderful life for the ego boost from a young, ambitious woman. Your poor wife and daughter, still putting your needs above theirs. The OP then says, my daughter is my absolute priority and will continue to be. I will do anything to make this as healthy and painless as possible for her. My wife tried to weaponize her, and whilst I'm willing to give her a lot of latitude in the situation, there have to be boundaries. Another commenter makes a comment quoting the OP when the OP said, I was planning to give up everything to build a life with her, and she was treating me like a joke the whole time. And the commenter replies to that quote saying, dude, read what you wrote. You're willing to give up everything to be with Amy. Everything, including your daughter. Don't try to play the role of a good father. You lost that when he cheated on her mother. The OP then replied saying, I would have, and I will. I will have 50-50 custody of my daughter. That is the default in the UK, and it is completely appropriate because I've always been a 50-50 parent. And then the commenter replies saying, even when you were lying and sneaking off with your 10-year junior affair partner, is that when you were a 50-50 partnering? What a joke. OP healed so quickly, he was on the adultery sub 3 days ago. Hope all of this is fake because no one can be this self-centered. And then the OP says, did you even read the post? And then the commenter replies saying, why are you so obsessed with what Amy told her friends about you? I thought your priority was your daughter. Stop wasting time trying to understand Amy's intentions just because your fragile ego has been torched. And then the OP replies saying, I can focus on the future whilst having questions about things that have already happened. I can't imagine what a black and white world you must live in. The woman I was planning a life with died, and I found out she betrayed me throughout the entire relationship. How could anyone immediately accept that and move on with no thoughts or questions? And then someone quotes the OP again when the OP said, I no longer feel guilt over her death. And then the commenter replies to that saying, sheesh, the woman you plan to spend your life with? Good grief. Completely agree with the commenter there. Then the OP says, I can assure you I haven't healed one bit from any of this. My life is in shambles. The fact that she has died is not going to rob me of my right to be angry with her. I ruined my life, but she was right there with her hands on the wheel. She talked to me about getting married and having more children and what our house would look like. And in the same day, she called me names and plotted with her friends about having me get her a credit card. I told her my hopes and fears, and she mocked me relentlessly for them. I thought she was my soulmate, and she exploited me in every way you can imagine. How the fuck am I supposed to feel? And then someone says, affairs can cause emotional trauma on children. How selfish to subject your daughter to trauma just to get your D wet. Your wife is not weaponizing your daughter. She's protecting her against you. You're not the victim here. Don't act like one. Your wife and daughter are the victims. And then the OP replies to that saying, she's 5 years old. If she notices anything is wrong, then we have both failed as a parent. Children are adaptable, and they can easily be kept away from situations that should exclusively be dealt with by adults. And before I read the rest of his comment, that's just not true. How is a 5-year-old? I mean, yes, that is a little kid, but even a 5-year-old's like, hey, why isn't daddy and mommy hanging out anymore? Why is dad not here? Why is mom not together? Like, do you think the kid's just gonna be like completely oblivious? They might be for a little bit, but then soon enough, they're gonna be like, hey, why haven't we eaten a family dinner in a while? Why hasn't dad and mom been hanging out watching a movie with me? Why haven't they this and that? Like, that is completely delusional and just false. Kids are very observant. Like, literally, when a kid is that young, that is the most observant they ever are. And they're learning the world around them. And you just think they're not going to notice that their parents aren't living in the same household anymore? That is just completely crazy to say. But then the OP finishes that by saying, my relationship with my daughter does not have to suffer because of the breakdown of my marriage. My wife does not get to protect my daughter from me when I have caused her no harm. We are completely equal parents under the law, regardless of whether fathers have rights on Reddit. I honestly can't believe that a father not walking away from his child is controversial. Regardless of what you think of me as a person, it is not in my 5-year-old daughter's interest to have one of the top 3 people in her world disappear suddenly. And then another commenter says, quoting the OP says, the founder still thinks my offer to pay them back will keep it out of court. And then the commenter says, so did you steal money from your company on top of abusing your authority at work? And then the OP replies saying, my expense account largely funded my relationship with Amy. It wasn't unusual in the company we worked at, but now there's a potential scandal. They're suddenly shocked and appalled by my actions. What do you mean they're suddenly shocked? Like, that is a crazy thing for a person to be doing. Spending company money on private dates that aren't company expenses. Like, of course they're going to be shocked. Another commenter says, good for them. How much are you talking here? Hundreds? Thousands? And then the OP says, a few thousand. Uncomfortable given that I don't currently know exactly when my income is going to terminate, but I'll get it back to them. And then a commenter leaves a lengthy comment saying, I had the same question. So you believe they will be digging through your expenses and asking you to repay any expense related to your relationship with Amy? FWIW. I'm not going to behead you. Obviously, what you did to your family was brutal to read. And as a woman, I feel for your wife. I'm also old enough to know that life is messy and complicated, and the heart can lead you to make bad decisions. I'm assuming your life over this past year has involved tunnel vision, and all you saw and all you could see was the happy life you'd have once the dust had settled. Amy isn't without fault, as she not only knew you were married with a child, but unlike you, not led by her heart, but her selfish desire to get what she hadn't earned, promotion or money. I think that after everything that's happened, you should let your wife take your daughter, with an understanding that you'll have visitation. Your wife's entire world blew up with one phone call, and she deserves the space away from you without leaving her daughter behind. You owe her that much, and you've acted in your own self-interest long enough. Give the woman some peace. And very good comment by that commenter, I do agree. And then the OP replies saying, thank you for this. I was willing to leave my home as long as visitation was assured. Unfortunately, my wife is taking things hard enough to want to keep me from my daughter, and it's the one line I just can't see crossed. Now, there's clearly no trust on either side, so I can't leave my home for the foreseeable. A hotel was going to be unsustainable anyway. It would rapidly eat at my savings. I don't blame my wife for being angry and petty and wanting to make me as uncomfortable as possible. In terms of my expenses, I disguised them all under the same client, so they're very easy to identify. It was primarily to hide the evidence of my affair with my wife. It didn't even feel like stealing, so I didn't go to great lengths to hide it. We used the expense all kinds of things. The culture around it was terrible. I realize that's no excuse. I haven't been asked to pay anything back. I offered to as soon as this all came to light. The company may be prosecuting me, but I've engaged with a solicitor, which greatly increases my chances of keeping this out of the courts. It's all still very early days, so what happens next is up in the air. Thank you again for sharing your very sensible thoughts. And then someone else says, dude, get out of your wife's house. Stay with a friend. Find a studio apartment, but don't do her like this. She doesn't deserve it. You can't scream about visitation being kept from you when you're not even making an effort to move out. You're very clearly doing this to keep your wife under your thumb, and it sucks. It really, really sucks. And then the OP replies to this saying, it's not her house, it's ours. And I want her to keep it, but right now, it just can't happen that cleanly. I've behaved horribly, but that doesn't magic me up to a place to live whilst we figure this out. My income is clearly about to stop, so I can't dip into savings that may be needed to keep us on top of our mortgage. Real people have complicated lives, and just go out doesn't cut it. I was prepared to leave in the immediate aftermath and find a way to make it work out of respect for my wife. But I quite simply will not be kept from my child, and I make no apology for that. Wow. I don't want her under my thumb and never did. She is going to town on me, and quite rightly. She sees me as a pathetic idiot who is taken in by a young woman trying her luck, and she reads the things Amy said about me aloud every day. She's right. The things she says about Amy are almost cathartic. The things she says about me, less so. She's hurt and angry and trapped, and it's all my fault. I hate what I've done to her more than anything else about this situation. Another commenter says, honest question. How stupid are you? You funded your liaisons with your mistress almost entirely with company funds. You put all of your defrauding in writing in one of the most difficult to fully delete forms of communication that there is. I mean, you didn't quite jump onto your boss's desk and yell, "I'm committing a crime," but yeah, you might as well have. And then the OP replies saying, "All I can say is that side of it didn't feel serious until it did. I planned to leave my wife for Amy, so our messages were never a concern, and the company culture around expenses was to milk them for all they were worth. It's no excuse, but none of it seems like it would collapse in some madhouse of cards scenario." And God, I mean, like, he's so obviously so dishonest. I mean, it's like, milk the company for all they're worth, and he expects to keep his job? It's like, of course your company's going to fire you if that's the way you're treating your company's funds. Of course they're not going to want to keep you around if you're acting like that, let alone all the other things that he's done. I mean, this is just a mind-blowing thread. Another commenter says, "You gave your wife 2 days. 2 days to absorb and try to understand everything before you demanded your parental rights. To understand not only that you cheated, but that the affair partner is now dead. You might be responsible. You embezzled company funds. You could be sued by not only your employer, but the affair partner's family, and you could go to jail. To understand that she's not only lost her husband, but her life as she knows it. That she might also be financially ruined by your actions. That the health and welfare of your daughter will be impacted by your actions. That any dreams of the future of your family are all gone. You said that you wanted to minimize the impact on your wife, but the moment you didn't get what you wanted, you decided she was the bad guy." That's actually a great point. I completely forgot about him saying, "I want to minimize the damage." And then he goes and does this. That's fucking crazy. The commenter continues saying, "You decided that your wants, again, were more important than anything else. How could any parent who cares one iota about their child think that leaving them in your custody would be safe? Because you said so. The whole world knows the value of your word. You are a stranger to your wife. What woman would leave their child with a stranger who is a liar, adulterer, embezzler, verbally and financially abusive to their affair partner, and potentially responsible for the affair partner's death? It doesn't matter what you say, the situation is different, as there is no value in what you say now. Your actions will impact your daughter, even at her young age. Something this big and horrendous will not remain a secret and will follow her throughout her life. You have lost your daughter simply because of the stigma of having an awful parent who could do all these things. People are not kind, even though a child is innocent. You should actually do something right by your family and leave. You being there is not good for anyone, especially your daughter." And then the OP replies to this honest comment saying, "If you think I'm giving up my daughter because my wife's feelings are hurt, you must be crazy. That's not how real life works." Oh my God, the nerve on this guy. Like, oh my God, I just feel so bad for the OP's wife. So bad. I can't imagine having to deal with someone like this. He continues saying, "I made it clear that I would keep communication purely around my daughter, and that I could pick her up and drop her off without my wife even having to see me. There are consequences to my actions, and there are consequences to hers. I am prepared to give up a lot during the split, but access to my daughter isn't on the table." Hold up. He said there are consequences to my actions, and there are consequences to hers. What are her actions? She's done nothing. She's completely innocent in this entire situation. Like, I'm genuinely getting worked up reading this. Like, this is fucking wild. And then a commenter even says that and asks that same question, saying, "What actions did she commit that deserve consequences?" Okay, at least we'll get an answer. The OP replies saying, "I left my home voluntarily because it was the right thing to do. My only stipulation was access to my daughter. My wife denied that, so I went back. I had one hard line, and she crossed it immediately. I understand what I have done, and I acted accordingly by leaving the house I own jointly, not insisting on taking the car I own outright, and committing to remaining invisible to my wife until she is ready to either talk or proceed directly with the divorce. I was completely willing to do all of that because I am in the wrong here, and there's no question of that. The only thing I can't tolerate is being kept from my daughter, because she doesn't deserve to have her father ripped from her life By trying to keep me from her, my wife destroyed a lot of goodwill that objectively benefited her. Now we go forward on that basis. Wow, this is just insane. And to be honest, that is the last update the OP ever gave us. No more comments, no more posts, no more anything. But it looks like he's going to lose his job, get divorced with his wife, and possibly lose his daughter. So this guy lost everything very fast. Well, to be honest, in my opinion, deservedly so. But I'm just at a loss of words for this. This is literally one of the craziest threads I have ever read. He turned from a guy saying, I'll take responsibility, to taking zero responsibility and even saying he didn't feel guilty about her death, even though he was arguably the reason for her death, not taking her to the hospital. Just a wild, wild Reddit thread, and just truly disturbing. Creepy stranger won't leave me alone. So recently, I just bought a house and everything seemed fine at first. All until one Tuesday, I was backing up from my garage when I saw a guy leaning against a Toyota Camry staring my car down. I pull my car out and roll down my window to ask him if he needs anything, and he just says, "No, sir. Have a good day." I then asked him politely if he could leave, and he didn't respond. He just stared at me for a good 30 seconds. I started to get out of my car and confront him, but as soon as he saw me go for the door, he got in his car and drove off. I was so rattled, I called in sick to work and called the police. They said I was probably being scouted for a burglary, which made sense. I had my brother-in-law come down and stay with my wife to help comfort her, and I went and bought a Ring camera set. After we settled down, everything seemed to go back to normal until Sunday. I was watching the Chiefs-Browns game when the same man peeked through my front window and stared at me and started laughing. And holy shit, that is terrifying, dude. Oh my God. I quickly went to grab my gun, but when I turned around, he was gone. I called the police and they took the Ring footage to try and track him down. Me and my wife decided to stay with my family until it's solved. Everything seems to be normal, right? Well, then last night at 2 a.m., I get a call from an unknown number asking if I am home. I ask, "Who is this?" And they hang up. I notify the police, but they say there is little they can do. I really love the neighborhood besides this, and I don't want to quit my job, but I'm just pondering moving out of the state and changing numbers. I have a baby on the way and can't take my family's safety for granted. Is there absolutely any advice you guys could give me to help me guide through this? Thanks, and God bless. And now let's get into some top comments. Someone says, ask the people you bought the house from if there's anyone bitter about the sale. Sometimes relatives or friends expect a free house or family discount, but it got sold. It could be unrelated, but it's possible he's doing this to move you out. I would at least ask the previous owners or their agent and rule that out if nothing else, especially if it was an estate sale from a death and someone is emotionally tied to the property, but it had to be sold. Most burglars scope out a house but don't usually want confrontation. This seems psychological. He wants you to know he's there. Do you have a friend with a big dog you can borrow? Ask a neighbor if they have a camera or Nest Cam they can pull footage from to see him or his car from a different angle. Can the phone number he called from be seen on your phone? Your phone company probably can't give you a name, but someone at the company might be able to tell you if it's a burner phone. The behavior seems really concerning. Unfortunately, if this person doing this randomly is mentally ill, you're likely not going to get logical motives from an illogical mind. Call the police every single time. Ask if patrol can be increased in your neighborhood. Have your wife call because sometimes they're unfortunately more sympathetic to scared women. I'd get some motion-activated floodlights around your house. I'm sorry you're going through this. Not feeling safe in your own house is horrible. There's such a personal element to this, especially with your phone number being called. Can you try thinking to when you moved and who would have access to your cell phone and go from there? New job? New house? Do you work somewhere political right now? In elections, election software, or in some way linked to some crazy election theory? And then the OP responds to this saying, "Hi there, so I'll try and answer as good as possible. From what I understand, the previous owners were a young couple like us. I asked the neighbors around them, and they said they were so friendly and often held neighborhood parties at the house. But you might be onto something. When I bought the house, there was a boxing war between me and some other person. I will ask my real estate agent in the morning. Unfortunately, no one else has cameras to get potential plates. I was really hoping they would, so we would know the car and he could be tracked down. I completely agree he wants to scare me, and for me to know he was there. I would love the idea of a big dog to borrow, but my wife is really pregnant, and I wouldn't want her to fall over it or for it to trip her." And that last thing you said made a light go off my head. Not gonna brag, but my wife is a very successful businesswoman in the area who also holds a seat in our local district. We live in a military/conservative type town, and she ran as a Democrat, so that might have something to do with this. When I was kind of helping her campaign, I was just kind of slinging around my numbers, so you never know. Thanks for these ideas. I'll let you know what happens. Thanks. And then a lot of the other comments under this thread were kind of copying the big thread that I just read. And sadly, the OP has since deleted their profile. So we can't get any other posts or see any other posts or comments that they made, but we just never got an update. So hopefully they're all right, because I mean, that is just so scary. I mean, it's scary enough that some guy is stalking them, but for the guy to peek through his window and then laugh about it and also call his phone number, supposedly or allegedly, we don't know if the guy did call his phone number, but most likely, I mean, at 2 a.m, some random guy calls and laughs and hangs up. That is very, very scary and very, very odd. But sadly, we don't know what happened because, like I said, the OP deleted the profile or their profile. So hopefully the OP's safe. Hopefully the OP's wife is safe. And hopefully they didn't have to move or do anything more drastic, because this stalker guy seems a little bit off his rocker. So what do you guys think? My friend keeps talking about this girl he met online. Something seems odd. My childhood friend, whom I've known since we were 3 years old, has had trouble organizing his life since the pandemic. After some setbacks, he managed to get back on track and start studying while working with his father. He told me he met a girl online while playing Play-Doh, a game. And I didn't think much of it because he always made his virtual friends. I stopped talking to him regularly for about 3 months due to my routine. When we resumed our conversations, he began to tell me more about this girl. At first, I was very receptive and believed him. This girl is from abroad, the USA. She skipped a few years of high school due to her intelligence. She speaks 5 languages. She graduated with the second best GPA in oncology medicine from Harvard. She joined UNICEF and went on many missions around the world. All of this while being only 22 years old. She has a very rare blood type, commonly known as golden blood. People with this blood type are at high risk during surgeries, which led to almost all of her family members passing away. She moved to our city for a supposed job opportunity, and because she'd been talking to him for a long time. I didn't believe any of this story, but he spoke with incredible confidence and sounded frantic. Every time I questioned whether he was joking, he assured me he wasn't. It turns out she got sick recently, which triggered a heart problem. So she's been confined to her home because she needs transfusions for some reason. My friend stopped going to work and studying and even quit college. He distanced himself from everyone and rarely responds to messages. When he does, it's to talk about her, his supposed girlfriend he met online. He says that he needs to talk to her all the time because, due to her condition, she is in danger of having a heart attack or something. Over time, he started saying stranger things, like that she was being harassed by people from the Play-Doh community. These people would make fake screenshots showing him being unfaithful, and she chose to believe them. She made him believe that she had abandoned her lifelong friends because they were against him. He even mentioned that she claims to have some sort of power to predict deaths. He describes her as if she was a genius or messiah. Once I invited him to play Play-Doh, and he agreed. I managed to talk to the girl via call and realized that he was indeed talking to another person. she didn't seem brilliant at all. In fact, I suggested testing my level in one of the languages she supposedly speaks, and she pretended to lose the connection. My friend even changed his phone number because he believes her wealthy Russian ex-boyfriend will track him down. He also mentioned that she knows how to hack phone numbers and access bank accounts. He told a very macabre story about a murder of one of her family members that chilled me to the bone. He says that he met this girl and that they made out. They both told me in the call I mentioned before that they met each other in person. Something seems very odd. I'm losing my friend and I don't know what to do. I'm unsure if they want to take money from him or something worse. I don't want to oppose him for fear that he might shut me out and stop talking to me. My friend was never a liar. I have known him since I was a child. I'm doubting everything. I don't know if she's lying, if my friend is lying to me for some reason. I don't know what else to do to help my friend. What should I do? And then people in the comments start immediately debunking this lady. Someone says, only 43 people in the world have ever been reported to have Rh no blood, or the golden blood. What are the chances that someone with this blood type also skipped multiple grades, graduated early from Harvard, speaks 5 languages, and has traveled around the world with UNICEF? And there are no news articles, medical journals, Harvard announcements to be found on the internet. Highly unlikely. And then the OP responds saying, she also claims her whole family had this blood type. There is no way her stories are true. And then someone else says, I don't know what type of oncology degree she's claiming to have, but Harvard doesn't have a dedicated oncology program, it seems. They have a clerkship and residency program that only targets radiation oncology. So immediately, everything about her has immediately been debunked. And then the OP gives us an update. And the update says, my friend and I went to his house without notifying him. His mother opened the door and told us that she'd been thinking of contacting us because she is also very worried about her son. She shared more details with us. He sleeps all day, wakes up around 7 to 8 p.m. in the evening, and spends the whole night talking to this woman. We also learned something that really alarmed us. When he changed his number out of fear of the Russian man, he also got a phone line for the woman. That is, the phone number I talked to and the one my friend talks to every night is in his name. The woman he talks to is completely untraceable. His mother is very concerned because he mentioned that soon he wants to go visit the woman to take care of her. My friend and I told her that under no circumstances should let him go out to find this woman because he risks never coming back. My friend and I took him outside of his house, and for a while, he was like he used to be, but he kept talking about fantastical stories about the woman. His parents are going to try to get psychological help. The situation has become very creepy. I don't know what this woman wants from my friend, and now I'm quite sure they never met in real life. I'm afraid this, quote, woman might want to kidnap him. I'm not even sure if she is only one person or more, because he mentions that he was harassed by other numbers, she hacked them, and messaged him through these numbers to show him that she took possession of the phone numbers. Now, obviously, she is the one behind all these numbers. This is so weird. I'm so worried. I'm only posting this on Reddit to know if this type of scam where you can get contacted by so many numbers happened before, and what does she or they want from my friend. And the OP posted this in like 5 different subreddits, and no one really had a good idea of what this person wanted from the friend, because the lady apparently never asked for money ever, so it's not financially motivated. But I'm just confused because, I'm going through all the comments on all these different posts, and the OP has never given an extra update or a new update on what happened to the friend, because the friend seemed completely enthralled in this woman, whether he was just alone and finally got the attention of a girl or whatever. Who knows? People can do dumb things when they finally get attention from a girl, but I don't see how this guy doesn't see through this. He's like, oh yeah, this very unicorn of a person loves me. And I also can never meet them. I can also never video chat them, and I'll never do anything with them. People, I guess, just get blinded by like love or whatever. But this is very strange, and we never got an update post. We never knew what happened to the friend, and we also don't know what the motivation was. Was it just some mentally deranged person who wanted to get all these attention, or was it a compulsive liar of sorts? I mean, to be honest, we don't know, and there has never been an update since, sadly, so I really do wonder what this scammer or person even wanted, but it's very, very strange. Somebody talking to me through a speaker in my house? Okay guys, this just happened and I'm pretty freaked out. I was out and about running errands, and when I got back home, I decided to relax and sit on my couch to listen to my audiobook. All of a sudden, I hear a voice shout my name. Not loudly, but it caught my attention since I was home alone. It sounded like it came directly across from me, which is where the TV is. I paused my audiobook and didn't hear anything else. I live in a townhouse on an end unit, so I assumed I misheard and it was a maintenance guy or neighbor talking to each other outside. I resumed my audiobook and then heard the voice again, a bit more garbled, and I couldn't understand what it said. I paused my audiobook again and then heard it say, "Now I can't hear you." I was never speaking, but I was playing my audiobook out loud. This time I could tell it definitely came from inside, from the TV area. I walked over to the TV and started looking around. Not sure for what exactly. I was just on edge. And I could hear a bit of background noise like someone walking or turning pages in a book. I felt super uneasy and not sure where the voice was coming from, so I went to my car and left my house. The voice was low-pitched, deeper, definitely a male voice, no accent. It sounded clear for the most part, but a little bit fuzzy, like if you're listening to someone talk on a speakerphone. I think I just couldn't hear the part that was garbled because the audiobook was playing at the same time, so I couldn't make out what the voice said. I have an Amazon Fire Stick hooked up to the TV that has a built-in Alexa. I couldn't quite tell if the voice came through the TV, which was off, or a speaker, or something else, but it was definitely in that area. I'm positive it wasn't the Fire Stick built-in Alexa accidentally being voice activated because of it being a male voice and because of the background noise. This is the first time anything like this has happened. It could be nothing, but I'm pretty freaked out because it knew my name and said it couldn't hear me only after I paused my audiobook. So I think someone can hear what's going on from inside my house. What could it be? What do I do? Edit. I wasn't going to include this at first due to fear of doxing / that a certain person would see it, but this post gained enough attention that I feel adding this information may help you draw a conclusion. I am purposely being vague here to keep me from being identified. As a teenager, I was R-worded by an older acquaintance. He threatened me to keep quiet and had stalking behavior, such as showing up at my house unannounced, etc. He only stopped when I temporarily relocated. Because of him. Roughly a year later, I moved back and never heard from him again. This summer, he contacted me through social media. I don't want to get too specific, but the day he contacted me was no accident. It was the anniversary of when he R-worded me. This also happened around the same time I started to work in a field where my contact information is public. When he initially contacted me, it was to apologize. He did not admit what he did. He just said he was sorry. At first, I answered his messages. This was obviously a mistake. The reason being, my mind sort of reverted back into the protection mode it was in during that time period, where I was, as he said, or there would be consequences. I felt that by ignoring him, he would see it as a rejection and make him angry. I felt that would put me in more danger than to respond to the messages, so I stupidly responded to his messages until they got creepy. He asked me very personal questions about my daily routine and schedule. He asked if he could come over. At that point, I knew responding to him was more dangerous than ignoring him. I started ignoring his messages and blocked him on social media. But he made new accounts and kept sending messages. I also believed he hacked my Facebook and unblocked himself, but after changing my password there weren't any more Facebook issues. The messages from new accounts came less and less the last few months. The last message I got was over a month ago. I thought he had given up because I haven't been opening his messages. Now I'm wondering if he is behind this. It might sound irrational or unlikely, but this guy is smart. He was always very interested in technology, and as I said, I think he hacked my Facebook before. I wonder if he's escalating because contacting me on social media isn't working. A couple months after, I started getting the messages. I reported him to my local police. They, of course, say they can't do anything. I don't have an order of protection or anything because he was never prosecuted. I know I should have included this at first, but I was afraid to. And then the OP makes another edit saying, the other reason I originally didn't include being R-worded and stalked in this post is because I knew that some people would see that and automatically jump to the conclusion of psychological issues or hallucinations. Yes, I suffered a horrific trauma, and that makes hallucinations more likely than if it didn't happen. But just because I went through what I went through doesn't mean the possibility of tech issues, accidental interference, or hacking just goes away. I didn't include my trauma at first because I wanted to eliminate automatic assumptions that mental health is behind all this without giving thought to the other possibilities. And then the OP makes another edit, number 3, saying, a Redditor suggested I use my Alexa app on my phone to see the connected devices. It listed 4 things: the app itself, an Echo Dot. I bought my mom an Echo for her birthday like 2 years ago. I called her and asked if she uses it, and she said she never even set it up or took it out of the box. I'm guessing the Echo Dot showed up on the devices because I purchased it on Amazon. It says offline next to where it lists the Echo Dot. Lastly, it shows 2 Fire Sticks. Both say online. I only have 1 Fire Stick. I don't know what this means in relation to the voice I heard from the speaker, but I think it has to mean something. And then the OP makes a 4th and final update, saying, sorry I haven't updated. I've been spending much needed time with family and haven't been online as much. Reading everyone's responses has been very enlightening, and seeing this many internet strangers care about my well-being is something I'm not used to. I didn't mean to leave anyone hanging. I've made a call to Amazon to see if they can give me any information on the second Fire Stick, but they've escalated to the investigations after I explained the possible hacking, and I'm expecting a call back within 48 hours. I will try to update once I hear back. I have consistently been with family, so I'm not alone right now. Also, no more voice in the speaker has happened since. Let's hope it stays that way. I wish I had a better update, but this is where I am right now. Thank you all for caring so much. It gives me confidence in humanity. And then everyone in the comments kind of reaches the same conclusion, thinking that the OP's Wi-Fi got hacked, or someone got access to either the Amazon Fire Stick, or her TV, or a speaker, or a phone, or something like that, and is talking through it, because that's something that can happen if someone hacks into a camera, or your Fire Stick, or whatever. Very creepy. But then the OP doesn't really give us an update for a whole year. And then someone comments saying, update? And the OP gives us a well-needed update, saying, I was able to have the second Fire Stick removed from my account. He hasn't contacted me on via the Fire Stick since, but he continues to message me via social media. I'm not responding to the messages, but he hasn't given up. He did manage to somehow figure out my location. In one of the more recent messages, he messaged me only to state stores/restaurants and other places I've been that week. I believe he did that to get me to respond, but I haven't. I've been pretty hyper-vigilant and have been extra aware of my surroundings. I take every safety precaution I can, and at this point, I just trying to accept the situation for what it is. And then the commenter replies saying, it was confirmed that it was the second Fire Stick as the issue? Were you able to ever locate a second one in your house that he may have planted? Sorry for all the questions, your story just really gave me the creeps and I got curious. I'm glad you're okay. I'm sorry that you have to accept such a situation as just it is what it is. And then the OP responds saying, it's okay. It wasn't in my house, but it was tied to my account. I don't know where the Fire Stick actually was. I'm guessing his house, but Amazon was able to disable it and disconnect it from my account. And so that update is helpful, but it doesn't answer a lot of questions. Like, who was the person speaking through? Was it through the Amazon Fire Stick? Was it through the TV? Was it through something else? And who was talking? Was it kind of the stalker that was stalking the OP, or was it someone completely different? I mean, we don't seem to have a clear answer on that, and the OP has never posted about this story again, so I guess we'll never know, because this has been 5 years or 4 to 5 years since the last comment on the issue, so I don't know. I wonder who's talking through it, but what do you guys think? Creepy gift left on my doorstep? So a few weeks ago, I found a purple bag left on my doorstep. Thinking maybe my partner had left me a surprise, I went and grabbed it. Well, it definitely wasn't for my partner, but it was a surprise. In the bag was a toy, a packet of lube, some loose batteries, 3 pairs of underwear, and a note. I've attached a link here of what was inside that thing, and then the OP posts a link, and I don't know how much of this I can show. I'm going to blur a lot of it because I don't know if underwear and the toy is allowed to show on YouTube, but you get the vibe. And then the note, which I think says, "You are yum and awesome. Just go solo. It's easier." And I think it says waterproof, so the lady wheats are Easter? Waterproof, so obviously freaky. Obviously it's some creep that left this. And let's continue on the OP's post. The OP then says, "I have a vague feeling that it might be my neighbor who often watches me and makes weird remarks to me, but I have no actual proof. I tried going to the police and they made note of the incident, but basically told me they couldn't do anything about it and that I should get security cameras and trust my gut about who did it. I know this neighbor has been in some kind of trouble with the police before, and I've heard from a girl I know that he has a habit of harassing women." It's creepy enough on its own, but what makes it even weirder is the underwear are similar to the ones I bought a few months earlier, but those specific ones have been in my ASOS wish list since the end of last year-ish. I don't remember showing anyone them, so I'm not sure if it's just a coincidence or if this person has some of my passwords to different accounts. I'm definitely in the process of trying to find some security cameras I can afford, but I was wondering what options I have here. Is there any way I can do some digging to figure out if this is the guy I think it was? Or even find out more info about him? And even if I do find out it was him or I catch him on my doorstep, can anything even be done? And now let's get into some top comments. Someone says, "This sounds stressful to deal with." A few thoughts. Number 1, in terms of a camera, the Wise Cam is only around $30 and works well. Number 2, do you trust your landlord or any neighbors other than the shady one? Might be helpful to give someone else a heads up and have them keep their eyes open and help document too. Number 3, is your name on your apartment mailbox or by your doorbell? If so, it might be worthwhile to remove it / change it if possible to see if that deters anything. Number 4, do you have any ex-partners who might do this kind of thing? In that case, I would be careful with your online accounts. Otherwise, maybe coincidence? Number 5, in case you do need to take more action down the road, be sure to document anything else that happens and update the police. Stay safe. And then the OP responds to this saying, "Thank you. Unfortunately, I can't really trust my neighbors. There's this one that is semi-okay, but I haven't seen him in months now, so I'm not sure if he even lives in my complex anymore. Thankfully, no name or anything on my apartment or mailbox, and I keep my mailbox locked at all times so it can't be snooped through. In terms of ex-partners, it's a possibility, but I haven't had any contact with any of them since things ended, and they didn't end in a particularly bad or messy way. It's definitely something I'm going to consider though. Thank you." And then someone else says, "Whoever it was, they can't spell easier. Such a short note, and they managed to misspell it, not only once, but twice. Easier with a Y and easy-er. Does the neighbor you suspect have any public social media? If they do, I'd take a look and see if they have happened to use the same word with the same misspelling anywhere. It's not enough to prove or disprove anything. Obviously, lots of people make similar spelling errors, but if you already suspect someone and manage to find out they misspell the word similarly to how it's misspelled on the note, it is a small clue, to say the least." And then the OP responds and makes a chilling discovery, saying, "This is a super good idea. I know he does have social media because I needed his full name to pass along to the police, and coincidentally, he had my little cousin added. Ew. But I haven't even thought to look for the same misspelling. Thank you. And then someone responds saying, why would he have your little cousin added? This sounds like he wanted someone close to you so he could snoop around your profiles. And then the OP says, the only excuse I can think of is that they went to the same high school. I'm not sure his age compared to her though, so that could be pretty flimsy. And that is a pretty damning discovery, to say the least. I mean, what are the chances this random neighbor, or seems like a random neighbor, to have the OP's cousin added? To me, this seems like evidence of the guy wanting to stalk the OP's social media profiles without being explicitly mentioned. Like, hey, your neighbor's following you now. Instead, he can just follow the OP's cousin and easily stalk the OP, if that makes sense. So it seems like he's wanting to follow the OP, but doesn't want to explicitly follow the OP. So the OP's like, oh, well, he's following me now. But ever since then, we sadly haven't got an update. But that note is very creepy, saying, here, use these and stuff like that. Like, that is so weird. And having a toy and underwear, I mean, that is just obviously weird. And I just wonder who it is. I mean, we haven't gotten updates since then. So I wonder what happened to the OP. I mean, did it just stop one day or what? I mean, it doesn't seem like we'll get an update anytime soon. This was 3 years ago. So what do you guys think? Because I'm kind of at a loss, but I would suspect the neighbor, I guess, allegedly, but we really don't have a lot of evidence to go off of. I mean, it could just be some stranger that also lives nearby that stalks the OP commonly, or it could be the neighbor. I mean, it seems pretty damning to me that the neighbor follows the OP's little cousin. That's really weird, but I don't know. We haven't got an update. So what do you guys think? I received a terrifying, scary note in my mailbox. Hello. I'm not sure if this is the right place to post this. I'm using a throwaway because I don't want this on my main account. It is currently 7:27 p.m. in England, and about 40 minutes ago, I opened my mailbox to find this weird and completely terrifying note. The link is at the bottom of the post, and we'll get into it later. It definitely seems like the person writing this was writing with their other hand to not get their handwriting recognized. And this is what scares me so much. Why would this person go to the trouble of doing this if the only sketchy thing they were going to do is write a note? I was at my cousin's since noon, and before leaving, I checked my mailbox and nothing was there. This means that the note was put there between noon and the time I found it, so about a 7-hour period. It wasn't inside a letter. I don't know anyone who could do this, and I haven't noticed anything strange recently. I did call my close friends, and they all advised me to go to the police, which I'm planning on doing so as soon as I can. But I'm not sure what they can even do. One thing for sure is that I'm not sleeping tonight. Do you think I'm overreacting? My boyfriend thinks I am and that it's just a prank, and I hope it is, but I can't be sure. Has there been reports of similar happenings in England that you know of? Thank you, and I'll edit this post when needed. And now let's get into the picture. In the picture, or the letter, or the piece of paper, reads as follows. Don't leave your window open. You might get sick, or worse. Are you ready? Good night. With an I drawn. And like the OP said, it does look like either horrible handwriting or written with the person's opposite or non-dominant hand. And then a very crudely drawn I. And obviously, this is very weird and also threatening. I mean, are you ready? It could be worse than getting sick. I mean, obviously, very, very creepy. And now let's get into some comments. Someone says, any neighbors with security cameras that possibly have your mailbox in view? Also, is there any way you could set up surveillance on your mailbox? And then the OP says, it is not a very wealthy neighborhood, but I could go ask. And as for the mailbox, I don't really see how I could do that. Putting something on the mailbox would be too obvious. And I don't have a camera, but I will be on the lookout tonight. Someone else says, prank or not, kid or not, this shit's scary AF. I do agree with the people that say this is a teenager or adult just based on the clear deception of trying to disguise their handwriting and the shape of the eye. You're not being paranoid. Someone put a threatening message into your mailbox. Not taking it as a threat is irresponsible. Even though there is a very low chance it's a true threat, always take things like this seriously, as your future could depend on it. My suggestions: number 1, contact your neighbors. If it was a prank, probably more than just your mailbox was hit. They may also be able to let you know if someone came to your door. Number 2, not sure how old you are, but tell your family or a loved one. Have someone stay with you tonight if you live alone. And number 3, tell the police as soon as possible. And then, unfortunately, the OP makes an edit to his post saying, "Edit, I'm going to handle this situation on my own. Thanks for everybody who has been nice, but posting here was just dumb. Bye." And we have never heard from the OP again. The OP supposedly said he's going to the police, but who knows? So what do you guys think? Do you think it was some kid playing a prank and just wrote that and put it in his mailbox? Or do you think someone's seriously trying to threaten the OP or do something bad to the OP? I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence here because it could very easily be a prank, but at the same time, it could very easily be someone trying to do something a little bit more sinister. And sadly, we literally have not gotten a single shred of update since then, so this is open-ended. So I don't know, but what do you guys think? My mother believes she is being hacked and spied on, which is quite literally driving her crazy. I don't know what to do. My mother believes her ex-boyfriend has hacked her phone and planted many video cameras and microphones in her house. This has been going on for quite some time now, at least a year, and I'm not quite sure what to do to help her or put her mind at ease. I don't believe there's any validity to any of her claims. I've gone over to her house many times to investigate things that she thinks have been tampered with. Her house was built in the 1920s. Some examples: a baseboard in her bedroom that she is convinced was taken off so wires could run behind it. The board is very solid and does not move at all. There is zero evidence that the board was ever tampered with. Rips in her bedroom carpet that, to her, were obviously used to run wires under her carpet. There are no signs of any wires being run under the carpet. It's at least 20 years old and quite frankly needs to be replaced. An old computer monitor in the closet of my old bedroom. It's my old monitor, but she's convinced that it's a different monitor and wasn't there before. Funny business in the attic. There's a random VCR sitting in the attic. She insists that she did not put the VCR there. There is nothing in the attic besides this VCR and some random scraps of wood. She thinks her ex moved the VCR to the attic to set up some sort of spy/recording contraption. About 15 years ago, she had insulation put in the attic, so the only area of the attic that is usable is like a 2x3 area floor. The floorboards are old and some are kind of loose. She believes this is also fishy. She believes the pile of wood scraps was not there before, that he pulled the pieces of wood up in the attic and hid them in the corner. She also pointed out a wire that she said wasn't there before. The wire runs from the light switch at the bottom of the stairs up to the lights in the attic. Obviously, this power wire has been there all along, but she doesn't think so. The other closet in my bedroom has a wall that she believes was repainted white. The wall is pretty dirty and does not look like it has been painted in the last 20 years. She thinks he painted this wall to hide wires. The walls in the house are plaster. They are old and cracked in places, rippled in others. She believes that he ran wires and painted over them, causing the ripples. To me, it does not seem like there are wires running behind the paint. There are lots of random wires in the house. Old cable wires, phone wires, and electric wires that have been cut and are no longer being used. I think the wires are just wires that she never noticed before, but now that she is paranoid, she is noticing them. The wires don't lead to anything. A few random holes in the ceiling of her bedroom. This is actually the weirdest one for me, as I don't know why there would be holes in the ceiling. They appear to have been drilled out and are about 3 by 8 inch circumference. I don't see anything inside the holes. I know there are loads of other things that I'm not thinking of at the moment, I don't think her house has been tampered with, but you can't tell her otherwise. She got rid of her internet/cable about 9 months ago because she was paranoid. If he did somehow or for some reason have some elaborate spy network set up, how could he be transmitting his recon back to him with no connection to the internet? There's also the issue with her phones. She has sent me countless screenshots of apps that are using her location in the background or that to her seem suspicious. Screenshots that I don't really understand. I'm just so confused. Has anyone experienced anything like this before? And what can I do to help her? Some screenshots she sent me, and for some reason the link no longer works, but I guess it's just probably screenshots of their conversations, and the mother is worried. I mean, I feel really bad for her. But then the OP continues saying, I know the language of this post may seem condescending, but really, I'm just annoyed and so over the situation. I think she just needs to burn the house down and get a flip phone. And now, before we get into some comments, the OP did make an edit to his original post, answering some common questions, so let's get into that before we get into the comments. The OP's response, or the edit, reads as follows, saying, wow, was not expecting this type of response. Thank you. My mother is 50 years old. I believe my mother is diagnosed bipolar. Not a conversation I've ever had with her, just something I recall my grandma saying. She's not particularly healthy. I do worry about her lifestyle choices. At least a pack-a-day smoker, drinks absolutely no water or milk, little to no physical activity. She has RA and fibromyalgia. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And I know lupus runs on her side of the family. She's been unemployed basically since the pandemic started and spends most of her time at home. Her ex spent a lot of time at her house when she was still working. This is when she believes he bugged her house. To me, he seems like a nice man. I know he spent a lot of money on her and never asked for anything in return. Paid her mortgage a few times. He did spend a lot of time on his phone/iPad, but I don't think he was really all that tech savvy. I guess he did mention to her a while back that at his work they have a lot of video cameras and that she wouldn't believe how small they could be. At this point, they've been separated for like 2 weeks and her paranoia has skyrocketed. She looks like she's aged 10 years in such a short time. Looks like she hasn't slept in days. A few days ago, she called the cable company to have them come over and remove all of their cable wires. And within a few hours, her ex randomly shows up. This morning, she said that yesterday, he came to her house while she was out and installed more wires. She's already changed her lock, so I'm not sure how he would have gotten in or how she knows he was in her house. Sorry for the lengthy edit, but trying to answer a lot of common questions and give a little more information. And now let's get into some comments. Someone says, I've worked in the justice system for a very long time, specializing in mental illness and behavioral health disorders. In my long career, I've seen hundreds of these situations. There have been rare instances, I can only recall one actually, where someone was actually being spied on, but otherwise, this is an extremely common but frightening and complicated fixed delusion. If your mom does not have a history of mental health concerns, it's important that you have her assessed for a multitude of potential issues. Depending on her age, it could be a stroke, dementia, Huntington's, even dehydration, other medical issues. It could be many other things. Others have mentioned potential environmental factors, toxins that should also be ruled out. If she has changed medications or stopped taking one, or increased her alcohol usage or stopped drinking for that matter, it could also be related to that. If you're comfortable asking her questions about changes in any of these conditions, kindly and gently, it could be valuable intel to give to doctors. It's uncommon for someone without a previous history of mental health issues that included delusions to manifest itself later in life without a medical issue triggering the episode. But it is possible that some dormant gene has now presented. It's also possible to have fixed delusions as a byproduct of a personality disorder, where essentially no amount of medication will ease the delusion because it's not a result of chemical imbalance, but rather a pattern of thinking. Counseling and other behavioral interventions are your best bet in this case. I know personally how challenging these situations are. It's exasperating, exhausting, and no amount of reasoning seems to help. I have to actively remind myself at many times this is not something that the person has control over, nor is it something they are doing on purpose. It's as much out of their control as it is mine. And even though I don't believe this is really happening, it feels very, very real to them. My recommendations based on information above and your intuition that the spine is a delusion. Number 1, you cannot rationalize or reason her out of this belief. Number 2, you can acknowledge to her that while you're not seeing what she's seeing, you can see that she is genuinely frightened. And number 3, you can assure her that you want to help her feel safe again and that you'll work with her to help find solutions to feel safer. Number 4, because you are concerned and care about her, in order to help you, need to start ruling out certain things like medical conditions, counseling her into getting medically screened, and taking these steps together will make it easier to get the help she needs. And number 5, document, document, document. When she is seeing doctors, don't rely on telling them these concerns in the moment. Having screenshots of your communications with her, plus dates of instances for how long this has been going on, will help you illustrate to the doctor how terrifying and debilitating this has been. Do not do things like try to fool her. I found the wires you were worried about to remove them, and everything is fine now, because that will deepen her paranoia, validate her concerns, or cause her to lose trust with you. If she begins to take more extreme measures to protect herself, or is failing to take care of herself as a result of this problem, you might have to explore involuntary evaluation options for your state/county. That documentation work you've already done will be extremely helpful. Hopefully, whatever the underlying reason, it can be identified and treated. I'm so very sorry that both of you are going through this. It can be frightening as well as frustrating to see a loved one with this condition, but the odds are very promising that if you can identify the underlying reasons and get treatment, things will improve. I hope you can get some answers soon, and please, come back to update us. And then someone else replies to this comment saying, I work in 911 dispatch. I get calls almost every night from people convinced they're being hacked/spied on/someone has been in their house, etc. Like you said, it's exceptionally rare that police find anything suspicious that supports their claims. Most of the time we get a quick disposition that caller is blank, mental health issues. Definitely agree with your advice. Whole lot of things can lead to these sort of issues, from the relatively easy remedied. There are a Reddit post years ago from someone who had a carbon monoxide issue, and they were leaving notes to themselves and moving stuff around in their home, and they had no idea they were doing it. A cheap CO detector revealed the issue, and they were able to get everything fixed. To more severe mental illness or brain cancer, etc. OP should rule out what they can, but also be prepared to reach out to doctors, therapists, etc. to get to the root of the problem and figure out the best way to tackle this issue. And then someone else comments saying, how old is your mom? Both my grandmas have/had dementia, and this was the first sign of it. Paranoia. I would definitely take her to the doctor. She might protest, normal for dementia or mental illness, but it's for her health. I know how frustrating this is. Still going through it with one of my grandmas, but thinking of it from their perspective. I'm sure life is really disorienting as your brain is not doing what it should be doing. And then someone else replies to that saying, absolutely. I had to move in with my grandma for a while this year, 90 years old, because she was having so many incidences. She'd wake up at 3 a.m., see men looking at her through the windows, or women walking through her home, and run and call the police, completely frightened. They'd do a sweep of her house and leave. They've come so many times now. When I was staying there, it only happened once, but she was freaked out. It made me have so much more empathy for the situation. I could tell how scared she was. I treated it like it was possible someone was out there, even though I knew there wasn't. Then, when she loses something, her first thought is that someone stole it or took it. She starts calling around, questioning people. She never stops to think, maybe it was me. Because of her age, she believes everyone is trying to take advantage of her and steal her money. It's a tiring thing to deal with, but what can you do, you know? And then someone else comments, how old is she? It might be dementia. When my grandmother was in her 60s or 70s, she started thinking her neighbors were spying on her. The dentist was intentionally harming her, etc. And so that seems to be a very common thing, is dementia or some other mental health issue. But a very, very sad situation. And sadly, the OP has never given us an update on this situation. So I don't know. I really do hope the OP's mother got help, and I just I think this is a very good post to read because, I mean, like everyone said in the comments, this is very common for people to believe these things. So if any of you guys are watching, you're not alone. Things can be fixed, and it might be hard, but it's for the person's best interest for you to help them out and get it figured out because, they're terrified and not in their right mind, which is so sad. But this was a pretty interesting post, and I just hope the OP's doing better now and the OP's mother is doing better now. On to the next one. I went out for a few drinks and came back with all my accounts emptied. So really, I just could not piece together how this has happened. I was in my hometown on a casual night out with friends, and after we parted ways, I have a period of absolutely no memory, and all of my bank accounts, business, personal, and savings with 2 separate banks have had all the money taken out. There are ATM withdrawals from 2 accounts at about 4 a.m., and these were the 2 accounts I had bank cards on my person for. So I initially thought perhaps I'd had a card cloned whilst I was out, but I was only using one of them, so it makes no sense how they could have both been copied and used successfully. It gets a lot worse, however. After taking the max possible out via ATM, there is a further 2,000 euros spent in a currency exchange and another 1,500 euros in what shows in my banking app as a restaurant, though not somewhere I can find any information on. To use my cards in the machines, they'd need my PIN. They could have seen me entering this whilst I was out, but I'm completely at a loss as to how they'd get the PIN for both cards when I was only using one. Worse yet, there was a transfer made from a completely separate bank account of mine into the current account I had the card for. This can only have been made via the app on my phone, which is authorized using my fingerprint. So the crooks topped up the account they had the cards for with more of my money, which they then stole. So there's 3 separate accounts they've been able to access somehow, and I've also been getting texts and emails about loan applications made in my name. This means that they've had access to my phone, my bank accounts, and my email. How could they have gotten all this? I've blocked all my accounts, not that there's anything left to take from them, and frankly, the bank aren't being very helpful. The police were a little more interested and have taken a full statement and pledged to look at CCTV from the various places cash has been taken out and spent. However, I'm still concerned this isn't over because I can't see any way they could do this without my phone being compromised, and I haven't worked out how this has happened. Fairly sure I must have been spiked to have this 6 to 8 hour blackout window. But does this mean they've just used my finger whilst I was passed out to keep unlocking my phone and authorize the transactions they've made? Because I've still got my phone and my cards, so why wouldn't they have just kept these or disposed of them? In a further twist of curiosity, both my main banking apps on my phone had disappeared from the folder they sit in. The apps are still on my phone, but have been moved, either in a failed attempt to uninstall them, or it could be that these aren't the legit apps and are some kind of clones that were installed in place of the originals. So can anyone piece together any suggestions as to how this has all been carried out? Is it possible there's some kind of phone cloning going on? Or is it more likely I've just been drugged and they've managed to get everything they need from my phone whilst I was out of it? I realize now how vulnerable it is having all of your banking on your phone and all of its access with your fingerprint. If it had needed a PIN or unlock pattern, surely there's no way they could have gotten in. Obviously, I feel completely awful for letting myself get scammed so badly, and I'm not holding out any hope that there's any way to get any of my money back, which was literally everything I own. I just really wish I could get a better understanding of how this has happened to me. Is this a targeted attack or just opportunistic, and I've just been very unlucky? What could the mystery 1,500 euro payment be for? If anyone recognizes any of the weird stuff here, please do let me know, as even the police seemed a bit baffled at the fact I'd had 3 separate accounts professionally emptied and yet still have my bank cards and phone. And oh my gosh, this is just such a scary situation. I can't imagine waking up and being like, oh my God, all of my money is gone. I don't know what happened, and they emptied everything from my name. I mean, that is so scary, but let's get into some comments. Someone says, you didn't let someone scam you. You were hurt and robbed, and I'm horrified for you. This is a sickening crime on your person. I understand the need to lock down your assets first, but also take the time. when you can to face the trauma of this. It'll sneak up on you if you don't. Also, see a doctor if you haven't already. Someone knocked you out for 6 to 8 hours. Jesus, that is deadly serious. Getting some blood work done and getting a physical exam is important for your peace of mind." And then the OP replies saying, "Thank you. It has been difficult to process because I'm just so clueless as to what could have happened, and half of me thinks I must have just been very stupid and this is my fault, whilst the other half is just utterly confused. It's part of the reason I started this thread because I don't understand what's happened." And then the OP gives us a quick update saying, "Quick update for all those interested. I've collected all the activity I've discovered via Google's invasive but useful snooping, and I'm speaking with the investigating officer today to update on all of this, including the location history showing times of car journeys and all the times various different accounts were accessed, including my government tax account. I asked about getting tested for drugs, and they said it may not yet be too late, plus I've collected my own urine samples just in case, though I'm not holding out hope anyone will want that, so I'll follow up on this today. I've continued to harass the bank, and they finally responded saying they will log out all instances of my account. Why would there even be more than one? And then I'll have to authorize myself again and hope this secures the account. There's no word on getting any of the money back, but when I speak to the police later, I'll ask about CCTV and the cash machines, and I'm genuinely curious to see if I feature in this footage. This has been incredibly useful getting advice and support from everyone here, and I honestly don't know where I'd be without it, so thank you to everyone who has gotten involved. I just didn't know where to start, and now I have a lot more detail on what has possibly happened along with accounts of other people who've gone through similar, which helps me feel a little less alone. I'm happy to come back and update further for anyone who might want to keep up with the proceedings. Hopefully the CCTV from my building, the ATM, the bar I was in, and the mysterious places my cards have been used will have something useful between them. I'll also see if the car can be identified from any cameras the neighbors may have. Thank you again. It really has made a big difference." And then the OP makes another comment giving us another update saying, "For anyone still interested, I finally spoke to the police again after days of them avoiding me. They said they're trying to get CCTV from the bar and places transactions have been made, but I'm a bit disappointed that 5 days later, they still haven't actually looked at anything. The Challenger Bank have made zero progress and keep just saying they're escalating, whatever that actually means. I've made a few inquiries myself at places my money has been spent, but struggling to get a hold of anyone who will help. It's all very deflating, but I'll keep at it." In a bit of good news, however, the second bank did refund me, and they've actually been really nice. That money does at least mean I can meet my rent this month, so I feel slightly less immediately stressed about finances. I also managed to speak to someone at one of the credit reference agencies, too, who confirmed the loan applications made in my name, none of which appear to have been successful so far, thankfully. He also put a password on my credit file so that future credit applications would need to know that password. That's something I didn't know you could do, and to be honest, wasn't something I'd have ever previously thought you'd even need to do. Finally, I managed to order a cheap drug test kit using the small balance of my PayPal account, and I'll use that on the urine sample I saved. I don't imagine anyone will take that seriously, but if it does pick up anything, I will at least provide me a bit of vindication. It'll be nice to get rid of the pot of piss in my fridge too. And then the OP gives us another comment update saying, "Quick Tuesday update. Now the bank holiday weekend is over. I'll hopefully get a bit more progress with the bank being able to help me with the unrecognized transactions, so I'll be chasing them today. I was supposed to speak to the police yesterday to follow up, but the call back never came, and when I chased it, they told me it would have to be today instead. So fingers crossed they call, and I'm keen to see if they've accessed any relevant CCTV yet, though I'm not holding my breath." On that note, I called the bar to ask about CCTV from the night and explain the situation. They seemed very defensive, like I was trying to illegally gain access to their footage, but I explained I just wanted to make sure it wasn't erased before the police had a chance to review it. They gave me a pretty shitty, "they can have it if they ask for it," and I was a bit surprised they weren't more sympathetic and helpful, to be honest. I've barely left my home since this happened, so I'm half tempted to visit some of the locations in my phone's history and do a bit of amateur detective work, but I feel pretty anxious about going out, so I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. Thanks again to everyone who's shown kindness and support. In the absence of anywhere IRL to turn, this has been quite therapeutic being able to discuss it openly and also hear from others with similar experiences. And then the OP gives us another update saying, minor updates for anyone still following. The police have now reviewed all the CCTV they could get a hold of and have determined that each time my card was used, the person using it was obscured. The hotel, the off license, and the 2 currency exchange are all inconclusive. The footage from the bar also fails to show anything suspicious. Disappointing though, not entirely unexpected. I guess these guys were professionals and knew how to avoid detection. Anyway, I've now lodged my claim with the ombudsman in the absence of any further evidence to support my case, so I guess I just wait to see if they'll find in my favor against the bank. One additional piece of intriguing information has come to light, however. When I requested all the data the bank hold on me, there is a record of my account details having been added to an Apple Pay account on a device labeled Jacob's iPhone. I've never owned an iPhone or used Apple Pay, nor do I know anyone called Jacob. So this is a pretty major detail the bank never revealed to me or even asked me about. Naturally, I've explained this in my statement to the ombudsman, so let's see what happens. Getting my money back is all I have left now. Seems I'll never know what actually happened that night, and I'm really frustrated at this. I never expected justice would be served to the crooks who did this, but I did hold out some faint hope I might get at least some answers. And then the OP gives us another update saying, back again with another not too exciting updates, but an update nonetheless. I decided to do a bit of my own detective work and visited some of the places my card/phone was used. One was a fairly shady currency exchange, but they were actually quite helpful and said they keep their CCTV and would be happy to share it. When I showed them the transaction in my app, they said that transactions of just $20 or more would be required to fill in a form with personal details. This suggests to me that these scammers were well aware of how to do this, as if I didn't know already, in order to extract the max they could without being flagged. The second currency exchange, the one that was originally listed as a restaurant, also confirmed they'd keep their CCTV for 6 weeks, so there's still time to get at if the police play ball. Another transaction was at a hotel in town at 4:30 a.m., so I visited the hotel to inquire about it. I was pleasantly surprised to find the guy at the desk was very keen to help and informed me that the payment was made to pay for a booking that had been made online, well in advance of the night in question. He also confirmed that they'd not used my name. Obviously, I don't expect whatever name they did use was legit, but it's interesting that the booking was made in advance and they paid for the room at 4:30 a.m. It makes me wonder, was I dumped in this room whilst they took my card and phone on a spending spree? They've also confirmed CCTV is available, so I have shared all of this with the police, who are still avoiding my calls. However, one kindly woman I spoke to did a bit of digging for me and said that whilst it was disappointing nobody would call me back, she discovered that they had apparently obtained footage from the bar I was in where I think I was potentially drugged, and this was being reviewed. Difficult to know if this will lead anywhere, but I'd love to see it myself just to see who I left with and how I looked. The hotel seems like a hot lead because the booking being made in advance could potentially be traced, though I can't imagine anyone will put the effort in to really dig into it. But again, the CCTV footage would be interesting. The bank have sent their final decision saying that the response was poor, so I've been credited with 90 euros compensation. Not even 2% of what's been taken. That's really disappointing. But reiterated they will not be returning the money. In some ways, this is useful because their final decision means I can now start an official complaint with the ombudsman. What's more, their official response said the reason for not returning the money was that they didn't believe the activity was fraudulent. I've heard they can sometimes reject claims based on customer negligence, not taking enough care to protect their account, but the fact they've stated they think it wasn't fraudulent basically means they're accusing me of taking the money myself. This means that if I can actually get any evidence of what's happened, I might have a fairly strong case against them. Weirdly, this week I've had notifications from another bank and from Instagram that my account has been accessed from another device elsewhere. I've changed all my passwords and reset my phone to factory settings, but can still see there was another device accessing my Google account. It was showing 2 devices registered with access to my account though. I've now revoked access to the one I didn't recognize. Also, the other bank from which the crooks transferred funds have sent me a letter acknowledging I was a victim of an account takeover, so they've recognized something dodgy is going on. They've reset everything with my security, so hopefully it's all secure now, but it does suggest the other bank are just ignoring the issue, especially as throughout my communication with them since it happened, I've had several alerts asking me to sign out on my other device. I don't have another device. Digging further into my Google search history, there's all the loan applications, but also attempts to access my tax account with HMRC, the government's tax authority for anyone who's not in the UK. And I've also found sites in the history claiming to be able to issue tax rebates. This makes me wonder if, after making all the loan applications that apparently didn't work, the scammers tried to use a company to see if I was eligible for a tax rebate they could quickly access, though it seems unlikely that anyone could get a tax rebate the same day. Unless they anticipated being able to access my accounts longer term, I'm still really paranoid that my phone is not secure, but I've completely wiped it and changed all my login details. I'm not sure if I previously mentioned it, but there was a second fingerprint added to my phone security settings, and when I raised this with the police, they said I'd have to ask the manufacturer if there was any way to determine when this was added and if it was possible to extract it. Unsurprisingly, they said no. In any case, it is gone now as I've reset everything, but I'm still unsure as to whether someone took my phone and could have added their own fingerprint or whether the fingerprint was added to some secondary cloned device. I just don't know if I was present or not because I have absolutely zero memory for about 8 hours. I really would love to know what happened that night and how this was all pulled off, but I suspect it will always remain a mystery. I know that not having any memory of it makes it difficult to prove I wasn't just wasted and someone nicked my phone, but the fact I still have my phone just makes it all more odd. I could have just said my phone and cards were stolen, claimed on the insurance, and maybe the bank would have refunded me, but I was honest that I didn't know what happened, even though I'm certain I wasn't just blackout drunk. And even if I had been, how would these people have been able to get so much of my personal data in order to have all of the loan applications, etc., if I was just passed out? I'm still so confused, but the lead from the hotel and the fact that everywhere appears to have CCTV gives me a bit of hope that I could at least get some answers. It makes no sense to me that I could have been present in all these places the money was taken without any knowledge, but I guess if they had my phone or a clone of it, I don't really need to be present once it's unlocked. Though you'd think buying over 3,000 euros worth of foreign currency should require some checks. And now on to one of the final updates. The OP says, thought I'd drop in for another update in case anyone is still following. Pretty depressing, I'm afraid. The bank finally concluded they would not be refunding any of the stolen money and have closed my accounts, citing that they reserve the right to do so without needing a reason. Just before this, they finally identified the mysterious 2K transaction to a merchant that was listed as a restaurant. It wasn't a restaurant at all, but another currency exchange place that had taken the name of a now defunct travel agent. It took them 10 days to finally find this out, and I've still got no address. To say I'm angry is an understatement. I've continued to chase the police because nobody will provide CCTV for review without them requesting it, but I cannot get anyone there to speak to me. I keep being told they'll call me back, but nobody ever calls. I don't want to complain about the police because I want to work with them and keep my cool so they might eventually help, but there's obviously a time limit on how long all the footage of the various places my cash has been withdrawn or spent will be kept. Because nobody will speak to me, the clock is ticking on ever being able to get clear evidence that I have not just gone around town emptying all my accounts and throwing the money away. It beggars belief that they could side with whoever did this simply because nobody will share evidence that will shed some light on what's happened, but at the moment, that's where I am. Obviously, I'll raise an official complaint to the financial ombudsman here in the UK, explaining the bank account has failed to protect my funds and provided no explanation as to how the money could have ever been so quickly and efficiently extracted. But I've got no idea how long this will take or whether it will ever get anywhere given this frustrating lack of evidence, despite the fact it clearly exists. It has been a horrible couple of weeks, and the administrative nightmare of it all just goes on. I need to organize moving all my regular payments and where my income is deposited, whilst also navigating official complaint procedures and continuing to chase the police. I've already had to negotiate delays to various bills being paid simply because there's no money to pay them. I've contacted press trying to help lean on the useless bank, but so far nothing has come of this, and some people have suggested I now take this to my MP to see if they can exercise some kind of authority, at least on the local police force, who don't seem to be doing anything. I appreciate I'm not the most needy victim they need to support right now, but I've lost all my money and have been severely impacted by this, forced to borrow from family just to get by. Obviously, I'd love answers, but more than anything, I just want my money back, an acknowledgement that I've not acted negligently in sharing access to my bank accounts. I still have no idea how this all happened, or even if I'm still at risk from future attempts to extract money from accounts I'll now need to open, not to mention the risk of being burgled, given whoever did this has all my personal details and my home address. It's depressing and it's frustrating, but all I can do is keep fighting until I've exhausted every possible option. One thing is for sure though, I'll be advising everyone I ever meet to avoid this dodgy challenger bank at all costs, appalling service, and a total failure in their duty of care towards a loyal customer. Thank you again to everyone who has shown compassion and sent supportive messages to me. I really do appreciate everyone's advice and kind words. I don't want money from anyone but the bank who failed me, but it has been nice to know that people care. Keep being good people. We need you in the world. And then the OP gives us another update. I won't read this one in full, but basically the police are still not getting the CCTV footage, and she's still having issues with the bank account. And oh my God, I just feel so bad for her because she's the victim in this crime, but she's fighting so much to get any sort of acknowledgement that it even happened. I mean, it's just so sad to me. But that's basically one of the last updates saying, hey, the police are still not really helping me and I don't really know what to do. And this was around 3 years ago, and the last update we ever got was about a year ago when the OP replied to a commenter who asked, did you ever find out whether or not you had been drugged? And the OP replied saying, no, there was no way to tell. I did take a test, but it was over 24 hours later. Unfortunately, nothing showed up, and I didn't realize how quickly you need to get on it. I will never know what happened that night, but at least I eventually got the money back. Okay, well, that's a good final update. The OP seemed to get the money back, even though it seemed like it was a never-ending struggle with the bank. But God, that's just such a depressing and disturbing story. I mean, the OP, who is obviously a victim of a crime and was seemingly drugged by some sort of drug, was fighting for months or weeks to get her money back, to get any sort of acknowledgement from the police. The police just were like, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll get to it. And then they never got to it. So they don't know who the perpetrator was or perpetrators was. And God, it's just so scary that you can be a victim of a crime and like you just won't get help from anybody. Like this OP, if the OP didn't fight so hard, the OP would have never got the money back. And it doesn't seem like the police ever caught anybody. So at least the OP got money back, but who knows? Like these guys are still out here probably doing that. But it's just so sad. And for everyone watching, please be safe out there. And if you're out and about at night, going to bars, whatever, just be very, very careful of who you surround yourself with strangers or whatever. I mean, it's not the OP's fault here, but still, just please be aware because, you know, this can happen to any of you, sadly. So please just be aware and be just wary of strangers because you never know who might want to take advantage of you. But it's just such a sad story. And I know this was a very long one, but I thought each update was very insightful and interesting because it was kind of like a detective case. The OP is like, okay, then I figured this out. Oh, this happened. And I thought it was much better than just reading the first thread and then just summarizing myself. I thought going and reading the OP's own words was very insightful, but a very sad story. But at least the OP got money back and hopefully those guys face justice from somebody. And all right, guys, that wraps up some disturbing true Reddit threads. This was one of the longest videos I've released in like a year and a half, so hopefully you enjoyed. I thought every single Reddit thread in this video was just wild. Just so wild. So I hope you thought they were interesting or entertaining. I mean, they were so crazy. Each one, the relationship one, the creepy notes at the door. I mean, this was a mixed bag of Reddit threads. So let me know if you prefer the mixed bag or you want them all to be kind of true crime or some relationship ones like that, relationship one, which was just crazy, or what you just like to see. I mean, just comment down below, and I read every single comment, so comment down below your thoughts and let me know if you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please check out some other videos on the channel. I'm sure you'll like those as well. And if you made it to the end of the video, please subscribe and like the video. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. The dark web is where humanity's darkest secrets hide. Illegal marketplaces, unimaginable crimes, and things society tries to erase all thrive here, often without consequence. Some sites were short-lived, some highly profitable, and some so disturbing even seasoned investigators couldn't handle them, and the people behind them rarely ever face punishment. And today, we're skipping the Silk Road and the stories you've heard 100 times over. Instead, we're diving into some unknown dark web websites. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And we're starting with one that is beyond disgusting. Pink, and I can't say the other word because of YouTube's guidelines, so pink crystal. Think about the Breaking Bad substance they cooked up. So yeah, pink crystal. In 2015, the world's biggest adult content website, the one, implemented a method for people to report revenge videos on their site. From that point on, if you came across some illicit content of yourself, which I imagine is horrifying, one click will take it off the website. But not every website is so inclined to help you. In fact, some have made a business out of it. Revenge videos became a prevalent problem in the early 2000s. Before then, it wasn't unheard of. Many people were caught sharing illicit photos of their exes, but the difference is, these incidences were isolated, often shared among close friends, which is gross to say, but that's like max 20 people. Your standard loser didn't have the resources to humiliate their ex on the macro. But when the 2000s rolled around, people had more reach. Social media, chat forums, emails, cell phones, and cell phone cameras. Gone were the days of professional adult videos. Now anyone could make one. And worse, anyone could share it. Not with a couple of people, but with countless thousands. Now, with every bad breakup loomed the possibility that private images or videos could be leaked onto the internet. And I hate to say this, but there's a ton of people who couldn't care less about consent. In fact, they enjoy non-consensual exposure. Now, thankfully, this stuff doesn't survive on the surface web anymore. Most adult websites have safeguards in place to prevent it, but the dark web has no such rules. For the purposes of this video, I can't say the actual name of the website, so we'll refer to it as Pink Breaking Bad Crystal, or Pink Crystal for short. Pink Crystal was a website dedicated to revenge videos. It was built in a similar way to 4chan, designed as an image board, where users could post illicit photos. But like we just discussed, none of these photos were posted consensually. In fact, some of them weren't even acquired consensually. I'm not sure of the actual details, but essentially, Pink Crystal users would hack into people's accounts and steal their intimate photos. One example is a woman named Shelby, I won't say her last name for privacy reasons, who actually sued Pink Crystal. She was a college student at the time, living in Texas and enjoying an uneventful life. But her days of peace were about to come to an end. According to court documents, Pink Crystal somehow gained access to Shelby's private photos, ones that had never been shared with anyone, and posted them. When Shelby found out, she was horrified, obviously. She contacted the administrators to take it down, and they not only refused, they harassed her. How, you might ask? Well, they had a Twitter page where they would post about people who were being exposed. I'm not joking. These people were demented. They would take non-consensual videos, post the links to Twitter, and then tag the person's social media pages, rallying their fan base to go harass these women. Shelby received death threats, threats of assault, and by the time she had discovered the images, it was too late. The damage was done. Previously, she had dreams of joining law enforcement. Of her own admittance, the dream was made impossible by Pink Crystal. To make matters worse, the lawsuit failed. In similar cases, the defendant often receives a settlement from the people who operate the website, and those people typically receive jail time because revenge videos are criminal. But there was a problem with Pink Crystal. No one knew who was operating it. To this day, no known person has ever been charged for the indecency allowed on Pink Crystal. When an official investigation began, they tried to track down the owners. When they discovered that whoever was running it was functionally untraceable, domain registration, admin accounts, operator records, all purposefully obscured. How? Well, the host company, Katz Global Media, offered a service to register untraceable domains. Even they couldn't figure out who these people were. After the attempted lawsuit, Pink Crystal was under heavy scrutiny. Before then, they operated on the surface web. But after a public backlash, the cowards retreated to the dark web to avoid a shutdown. Now, normally, a shutdown wouldn't matter too much. After all, they're just sick people looking for a rush. But Pink Crystal was different. Pink Crystal was monetized. Most of the time, these kinds of websites run banner ads and pop-ups. So even though we don't know an exact figure, we can use similar websites like Is Anyone Up to approximate their earnings. Is Anyone Up was a similar revenge video site, the first one to ever hit the mainstream. And because of its shutdown in 2012, we know that the owner, Hunter Moore, was making $13,000 a month on ad revenue alone. For 2 more years, the site continued to torment its victims from the dark recesses of the internet until 2014, when the FBI, in action with Europol, successfully shut down Pink Crystal. Over the years, the anonymous owners have attempted to relaunch the site to no avail. Luckily, today they are permanently offline. The Iron Troll website has archived some Twitter posts. All of the names and links have been redacted or are inactive. But scrolling through, it's easy to see how horrible this website truly was. I can only imagine the lasting impact it had on the people who were exposed. And unfortunately, I'm sure there are other websites just like Pink Crystal surviving today, somewhere down deep in the dark web. Archetype market. Now, this might just be because I'm a YouTuber or I'm chronically online, but from my perspective, everyone and their grandma knows about the Silk Road by now. We've talked about it before on the channel, and for the few of you who haven't heard of it, the Silk Road was a website running from 2011 to 2013 that operated as an online drug marketplace. And frankly, I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of writing about it, and I think it ties into a problem YouTube is having when it comes to dark web material. When the internet was new and scary, the websites hosted on untraceable browsers seemed like the most horrifying things online. But as the internet got older, and I did too, I started to notice that most of the videos talking about dark web websites were the same old, tired, recycled ones we saw 10 years ago. It's interesting to say that something like the internet's first drug dealer marketplace, hidden from the surface web, feels more like history to talk about than an actual story. And personally, I don't like covering old news. So when I came across Archetype Market in my research, I was very excited to share it all with you. Let's start at the beginning. A boy is living his life in Germany. He was young when the Berlin Wall fell, 5 years old, and grows up in the shadow of poverty it created. He's in close contact with drugs from an early age and begins experimenting. When I was younger, I thought I was invincible. I thought I was smarter than everyone else, so I skillfully ignored every warning and did what I felt like every day. Since I was a teenager, I've tried different drugs, but I have to say that alcohol was the worst drug for me. But this is probably also due to the environment and the circumstances. But like any young man, he wants to create something of his own. Him and his buddies get drunk and start thinking up ideas for a website. something new, something that would bring them out of poverty, but it never gets anywhere. He's stuck. Then, at the age of 20, he began his journey with hallucinogens. When I consumed hallucinogens for the first time, I felt like someone had just given me the gift of critical thinking. I started to question a lot of things. Firstly, why I'm drunk almost every day. I realized that I'm very far from what I imagined for my future when I was still a child. As a child, I always wanted to practice a social profession and do something good for the world and for my fellow human beings. But at that time, I actually did exactly the opposite. I showed antisocial behavior and got on everyone's bad side as best as I could. I think that was also my ego death. I realized and perceived many things that I did not perceive before. After my first trip, I wanted to do it again, quickly, and took 4 more trips within a few months. After the 4th trip, I had a new self-image and didn't want to drink alcohol anymore. I stopped drinking alcohol overnight and haven't had a drink for over a year. I started to focus on the goals of my childhood, and of course, I have also set myself some new goals. Cue the Silk Road. The boy, now a man, sees the work of Ross Ulbricht, creator of the Silk Road, and is inspired. He starts to develop his own ideology, a belief that drugs shouldn't be illegal. He believes that drugs in all forms aren't necessarily evil. They aren't good, they aren't bad, they just are. And he begins to believe that drugs shouldn't be criminalized in Europe. After all, it's a victimless crime. If he created a marketplace, it would be to further his political ideal, that true freedom means illicit substances are legalized. But he doesn't like the actions of Ross Ulbricht. It was clear to our young man here that Ross was motivated by greed. He believed that a new website could do some good, give freedom to the people, and destigmatize the industry. All of what I just described was from a German interview conducted with our young man in 2021. He had developed an archetypal sense of manhood. He wanted to do what he believed was his duty. His name was Mark Hegemeister, and he founded Archetype Market, the longest running online drug marketplace ever created. Launched in 2020, Archetype Market hit the ground running, wanting to be different from the Silk Road. Arms trafficking wasn't allowed. No personal listings. It was an unadulterated online store solely for drugs. The website had 6 vetted distributors, covering a couple of different bases. I won't list what drugs were sold. I don't want YouTube to flag me, but they sold most of the popular narcotics we see today. Mark studied the Silk Road and learned from Ross Ulbricht's mistakes. He made sure no communications were done from personal emails, no identifying information was on the site, and everything was deeply encoded. He implemented a cryptocurrency called Monero for transactions to keep everything totally anonymous. Most other drug marketplaces today are taken down quickly, but because of his efforts, Archetype Market survived for 5 years, which is basically unheard of in 2025. But it wouldn't last forever. Europe was hot on his heels. Agencies all over the continent were on the hunt for this new drug lord. Ideology or not, good intentions or not, he needed to be taken down. The fact of the matter is, freedom or not, people die on drugs. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives to the free-minded ideology Mark Hegemeister supported, and unfortunately for him, he was the top marketplace on tour, and with that exposure came his downfall. Operation Deep Sentinel was born. A sentinel is a guard, a soldier, whose job is to keep watch over something and keep the people safe. Operation Deep Sentinel was a joint effort between Europol and police agencies from 44 different countries to protect the people and clean up the dark web. And after half a decade, they finally seized the website and arrested Mark in June of 2025. Now, let's not get it twisted. Mark was a drug dealer, plain and simple. His actions probably resulted in deaths, countless families being damaged or destroyed, and I only wish he would have used his passion for something else. Because maybe he could have done the world some good. But today, Mark is in jail, awaiting trial, and Archetype Market joins the graveyard of similar marketplaces, never to return. Welcome to video. Of all the entries on this list, this one is the most sickening, bar none. In June of 2015, a website launches on the Tor browser, and very quickly, it picked up traffic. Their service, selling videos. Many videos. Some had been circling around the internet for years. Some were brand new. But the owner wanted a place to keep them all. A marketplace for sharing these videos to the widest possible audience. And as you may have guessed by now, these videos were terrifying and about children. Now, I want to say really quickly, I read the comments, I hear you all, and I don't want to keep saying cheese pizza, but unfortunately, even the more respectful term you've all been recommending gets flagged by YouTube. I know many of you have been requesting I begin using the other term, and I want to. I want to be as respectful as possible when covering these cases, but unfortunately, YouTube doesn't like us even using those terms. And with that said, I think stories like these are very important to talk about. Exposing these disgusting people is one way to help combat the problem, and the only way I can do so is by using cheese pizza as the acronym. So I'm sorry in advance. I'm going to try to say it as scarcely as possible. Now, most websites that host cheese pizza are small. It's not very often we hear about one with more than a couple thousand articles of cheese pizza material, which is crazy to say. Obviously, any cheese pizza material is terrible, but a couple thousand is unfortunately the standard. But it doesn't typically get above that because these kinds of websites garner ridiculous attention, which is disgusting to say the least, but law enforcement puts the boot on the neck of these sites with frequency. Just this year, there was something called Operation Grayskull, which executed in an effort to shut down 4 dark web websites that hosted cheese pizza. In total, 18 people were arrested, receiving 300 years of jail time altogether. The Assistant Attorney General, Matthew R. Galetti, had this to say: "Today's announcement sends a clear warning to those who exploit and abuse young people. You will not find a safe haven, even on the dark web. Thanks to the relentless determination of our prosecutors and law enforcement partners, we have exposed these perpetrators for who they are, eliminated their websites, and brought justice to countless victims." So it's very clear. Law enforcement wants these people arrested, and they put a lot of effort and energy into shutting down these websites quickly. But Welcome to Video was different. I mean, it makes Operation Grayskull look like a shoplifting case, because Welcome to Video wasn't just pushing a couple of videos. Like I said, this was designed to be a marketplace, and Welcome to Video was a very successful, very insidious marketplace. They hosted over 200,000 videos. Yeah, you heard me correctly. 250,000 videos on one website. And those numbers don't turn up overnight. No, this website was active for years, and they had an unbelievable 1.2 million registered users. I wish I were making this up. It makes me genuinely sick to say that out loud, but unfortunately, it's true. There were 1.2 million accounts on Welcome to Video. Just for reference, if a podcaster on Spotify had 1.2 million followers, they'd be in the top 15 most popular podcasts on Spotify. The city of Philadelphia has a population of 1.5 million. That's how disgustingly large that number is. In researching this video, I also discovered that this website had memberships, which is terrifying in and of itself, with most of these users having the free membership and 4,000 being paid members. Sick, absolutely sick. A lot of these videos were acquired from another site that was shut down called Avesno, but the growth that Welcome to Video saw was undeniably massive. As more users joined, they uploaded their own materials until an unfathomable 45% of its videos were unique, over 100,000. That's unheard of, and it also means that these weren't recycled videos. The crimes were happening live. Active exploitation on the macro. When the US government became familiar with this website, needless to say, they wanted to catch the monsters responsible. And that's not to say other governments weren't angry as well. This website was a global issue, and its victims spanned continents. But the US didn't waste a second. Homeland Security and the IRS started working to identify them. Thankfully, the servers for Welcome to Video weren't very secure, and they were able to track the IP back to a rough location, South Korea. Now, this was a good start, but in order to pinpoint who exactly was running the website, they'd have to dig deeper. Now, Welcome to Video took payments through Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as we all know, is an anonymous currency, and most people think it's untraceable, but it isn't. Not really. You see, if you tried to track any cryptocurrency from the surface, it wouldn't go anywhere. You'd be chasing a ghost. But this is the IRS and Homeland Security we're talking about, and they had an idea: the blockchain. If they could follow the transactions through the blockchain, through the dark web, by surveilling suspects with less secure networks, they'd be able to pinpoint who was receiving all the money. And in March 2018, 3 years after Welcome to Video was published, which is 3 years too goddamn late, South Korean resident Son Jung-woo was arrested for creating the now infamous website, along with 337 other people. Those 337 people weren't just active users. During the investigation, they discovered that a lot of the videos were from active crimes of exploitation, and each of them was arrested. In this process, many children were saved. Happy ending, right? Nope. The guy is free today. How, you might ask? Well, when he was convicted of the crime, South Korean courts gave him an 18-month sentence for the production and distribution of cheese pizza. That's it. Now, the maximum sentence for cheese pizza in South Korea was 5 to 7 years, which is still unacceptably low, but he got a lighter sentence because he needed to support his family. I wish I was lying. The US attempted to extradite him so we could charge him here, but South Korea refused. When he was released after a year and some change, they charged him with fraud for gambling with the cheese pizza money, giving him another 24 months for a total of 42 months or 3.5 years in prison. Now, keep in mind, the maximum sentence at that time in South Korea was 5 to 7 years. That's it. Nothing more than a slap on the wrist. Now, if this makes you ridiculously angry, you aren't alone. The citizens of South Korea were absolutely infuriated by how short this monster sentence was. And eventually, they took it to the Supreme Court of South Korea, who later raised the maximum sentence time from 5 to 7 years to 29 years, which, yeah, glad they changed it, but that doesn't detract from the fact that this man is walking free today. He can't leave his country or he'll be rearrested, but he's free. I have nothing else to say about this website except I'm glad it's gone. And I wish the other 1.2 million people involved would face some consequences, but today, it looks like that isn't gonna happen. But at least the laws got changed in South Korea, so maybe next time, more people don't have to get hurt. And more people like Son Jung-woo can be properly punished. Carter. As you all know, the United States and Russia have been strong allies for 80 years, and nothing has ever impacted their relations negatively. If that joke wasn't obvious, here's the plain English. Our governments have been at odds since before they invented sliced bread, and when it comes to issues online, including the dark web, neither nation sees eye to eye. And the story we're about to cover takes this conflict to a whole other level. We're talking about Roman Seleznev. Now, I wasn't familiar with this man either, or his website, Carter, before researching this video, so let's discuss this man's timeline, and I'll try to fill you in as best as possible. Roman Seleznev was born in 1984, the fourth son of Valery Seleznev, a member of Russia's Duma. Now, the Russian Duma is essentially the country's parliament, established in 1993. For our US listeners, it's like the House of Representatives. The Duma is responsible for debating and passing legislation that goes into law, so Valery was a big deal, and still is. Not much else is known about his early life, but being the son of a powerful figure, we can imagine he had a pretty alright childhood, and he really liked computers. Like, a lot. There are no official records of him until 2003, when at the young age of 19, he began his career as a multinational hacker. At one point in time, there was a dark web website called Carter Planet, a forum for selling and trading stolen information. Today we hear about this type of crime all the time. Servers are infiltrated, Facebook gets a data hack, and suddenly people are getting charged $10 for a drink they never bought in a country they've never visited. Now, Roman was an expert at stealing people's information. He would hack background check websites and retrieve their data, stuff like social security numbers and criminal histories, and he would then sell them on Card Planet. He was making so much money. In fact, he hired an employee, but there wasn't a lot of business in social security numbers. No, the real money was in the plastic. Credit card numbers. Roman worked with his employee to develop a software that would scan the internet for something called MSRDP open ports. Essentially, he was looking for weak security on administrative networks. Think of it like trying to break into a house. The front door has a state-of-the-art security system, but the back door has a cheap padlock. That cheap padlock was the MSRDP open port. He could connect to it remotely, break the lock, so to speak, and retrieve all the data without ever getting found out. And these networks had financial information, specifically credit card numbers. But there were a lot of networks to cover, lots and lots of houses, and most of them only had a couple of numbers. Roman needed a way to sift through the worthless ones and find the money. Large businesses with lots of recorded numbers. So we contacted another hacker, Bad B, and paid him to write an automated program that would look for credit card numbers across multiple networks. With this program, Roman and his employee scoured the internet, and after a couple of days, they received their first credit card dump, and he sold it to Bad B for thousands. They operated successfully for a year, stealing thousands of credit card numbers across multiple nations. Their target? Businesses, banks, financial institutions. Eventually, they developed malware that could crack even more sophisticated security, and they were raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars by the end of the year. But in 2004, the waters were getting choppy for Roman and Bad B. The operators of Carter Planet realized that law enforcement had caught their scent, and they shut down the website. Left without a way to make money, Roman looked for another home to sell his stolen goods. That's when he discovered Carter. Carter was the functional successor to Carter Planet, but now new and improved. It operated like the eBay of credit card theft, with hundreds of vendors and thousands of buyers selling millions of dollars worth of stolen credit cards. If you ever watched the news and wondered where all those stolen credit card numbers were going, this was where. A dark web criminal syndicate orchestrating multiple million-dollar heists across every nation on planet Earth, operating on Carter. And Roman was a big player. He posted ads across the website, specifically on the Card Dump forum. He had a lot of money by this point and was considered one of the most trusted thieves on the site. But he had a problem. Hacker Bad B, his longtime partner and friend, was getting jealous. Roman was making a ludicrous amount of money using a program Bad B had devised, and before long, their relationship began to sour. Friendship curdled into bitter hate, and an all-out war began. Anywhere Roman posted his ads, Bad B posted more. They wrestled over the sale of stolen credit cards and tried to screw the other at every opportunity, talking bad about the other and their credibility. It was a nasty, drawn-out battle between the two thieves, and before long, they were the only real players on Carter, the two master thieves fighting for the throne. Then, in 2010, Roman caught a lucky break. Bad B was arrested on a U.S. warrant in France and was extradited on charges of fraud. The battle was won. The war was over. And Roman, left with no competition, was the crown prince of credit card fraud. And for 4 years, Roman reaped the rewards. He traveled the world, hired more employees, and was richer than ever. The smallest estimate for how much money he made is $17 million. He stole over 2.9 million credit card numbers for a total cumulative theft of over $169 million, plucked from the pockets of everyday civilians. That's right, he was single-handedly responsible for the theft of over $169 million, making him one of the most devastating thieves in modern history. Until 2014. You see, the United States were made aware of Carter about 2 years before Bad B was arrested. And this time, they weren't watching from the back lines. They had a front row seat. The Secret Service had infiltrated Carter and spent years following breadcrumbs to catch these criminals. They went undercover, buying credit card dumps, both from Bad B and from Roman. Eventually, they were able to track down Bad B, but Roman was more difficult. Roman was smart. He used multiple usernames to disguise his identity. Online, he wasn't Roman Selzanev, he was NCUX, Track 2, Bulba. One name was literally just Tupac. By hiding his title, it made it much more difficult to pin him down. In fact, initially, they believed Roman was actually multiple people. But Roman made some mistakes along the way. Firstly, across all of his aliases, the pricing never changed. This was odd. Most vendors had different pricing to compete with the competition. Roman and Bad B had different pricing. Think of it like McDonald's and Burger King. They were trying to outdo one another to sell the most of their product, but these aliases always had the same pricing. And over the years, the Secret Service tracked his writing style in communications with each of the 4 personas. All of this made it abundantly clear. These weren't 4 separate hackers. It was one man operating a multi-million-dollar business with very little help. So, how did they catch him? Well, after they buy a credit card dump, they'd collect all of the institutions that had the cards saved online. When they did this, over the tens of thousands of instances, they were able to narrow it down to a couple of institutions. From there, it was clear this wasn't a team effort, again, reinforcing the theory that this was one man. And remember when I was talking about MSRDP open ports? The cheap padlocks that Roman used to infiltrate these institutions? Well, Roman was remotely connecting to the networks from his personal computer. And in doing so, he left behind key information, the digital version of a physical footprint. He left behind his IP address. Even when he used VPNs, systems for obscuring his IP address, he would reuse the same systems, hosting companies and domains, all under the same aliases. And with this information, the Secret Service was able to get a name and a location: Roman Selzanev, the Maldives. In 2014, in coordination with the Maldives government, he was arrested by local Maldivian authorities and extradited to the United States. The dark web mecca of credit card fraud, Carter was finally shut down, and the crown prince of credit card fraud was finally in custody. But the story isn't over yet. So far, we've talked about the US interest in catching Roman, but what about his home country, Russia? Well, although the war between the two thieves was long since over, the war between the nations was just beginning. News broke all over the world. The United States made another arrest on a dark web kingpin, and another website shut down. The people were safe once again. But when Russia got word, they had a different story to tell. They called it an illegal kidnapping by the United States. According to them, Roman was their concern and their citizen, so the United States had no right to imprison him without Russian due process. They asked where Roman was being held or where he had even been arrested, and the US refused to give up the information. The Russian government was pissed. To them, this was an incredible disrespect. Eventually, through the American legal system, the Department of Justice eventually revealed that Roman had been arrested in the Maldives, and this continued to exacerbate the national conflict. You see, the Maldives doesn't have an extradition treaty with the US, and still doesn't to this day. The government of the United States negotiated with them specifically to arrest Roman and shut down his dark web enterprise. But the Russians considered this a departure from international legal norms. However, the US was prepared to defend itself. Back in 2009, when they discovered Carter, they believed Russian citizens might be involved. So they reached out to the FSB, which is essentially Russia's FBI, and requested assistance in capturing the criminal who would later steal hundreds of millions of dollars from basically every nation on the planet, Roman Selznev. But Russia denied the request. They refused to help. In light of this, the US stated, "We had no other option. You didn't want to arrest him, so we did." So for years, he was held in the United States awaiting trial until 2016, when Roman was found guilty of wire fraud, device fraud, credit card fraud, illegal access to protected computers, and the compromise of over 2 million credit cards. He was charged with 27 years in federal prison, but he didn't spend 27 years in prison. Don't forget, Roman's father was a Russian politician. This wasn't some random kid. This was the Russian equivalent of a senator's son, and they wanted him back. Over the years, the Russian government continued to make a stink about the arrest, calling it politically motivated and unjust. But Russia knew they had an ace in the hole. Russia had a couple of prisoners we wanted back. Among them, 2 journalists, a handful of activists, and a US Marine named Paul Whelan. Whelan was arrested in 2018 in Moscow and charged with espionage, a charge the United States vehemently denied. In fact, Paul was initially told upon his arrest in Russia that he was being detained for the express purpose of a prisoner exchange. In exchange for these prisoners, Russia wanted a couple of people, including Roman, a business fraudster, a couple of spies, and the famous Russian assassin Vadim Krasikov. In 2024, the exchange was agreed upon, and Roman was released to Russia. When he arrived by plane in Moscow, he was met by Vladimir Putin himself, and to our knowledge, he now walks free. And alright guys, that wraps up some unknown dark web websites. I really enjoyed this video. This was a little bit different than the previous dark web websites. Like the title even says, these were unknown. These were a little bit more obscure. These were more unique, so hopefully you enjoyed. If you did find this video interesting, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy others, so check out some other videos on the channel. I appreciate you guys watching. It means the world. Thank you so much for watching, and this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.